The green-eyed archangels. From where the sun sank, 6-gun coffin lid squeaked as the 6-gun soldiers sat up staring at the dark sky. Their ghost-like skin where American blood flowed, their dark horses pawing at the earth, bringing death with their payload. They checked their hearts for shards of oak. None there, that was a plus as they stood ready to fly. They climbed grim and sour into their black sky chariots, frames dark as night, night darker than soot. It looked like a fight. When up from the links, there rose such a clatter, a ruckus of Ralphus and hornety splatter. The stalkers were up now, they rested by day. They rose up at dusk to slap the night away, until dawn. 6 guns didn't miss, night stalkers didn't quit. Rangers led the way. Hit 'em hard, hit 'em again. Valare Optimus. Written by George E. Hand IV. Battle of Editha Dam.
What's going on, Team Trek family? Welcome back to another episode. In the studio tonight, we have a living legend, CW4 retired Gregory Coker. He was a Night Stalker pilot with 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. He flew attack little birds in some of the most deadly battles in the global war on terror. From the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, the battle at the Editha Dam. He's got a great book out called Death Waits in the Dark, 6 Guns Don't Miss. I highly recommend it. It's a great read. It is an absolute honor. Let's bring him in. Greg Coker, welcome to Team Trek Podcast. How you doing, brother?
Brother, thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking me to come down and join you. I'm so honored, and I'm excited about this and the message that, I pray that we can get out today. Yeah, man. That's cool. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Well, let's dive right in. I want to tell the audience. I want them to really feel like they understand where you're from, how you grew up, and then what took you to the military, and then kind of going through that story if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, like most of us, I was born in California. My dad was stationed out there. He was in the Air Force in the '60s, and then we moved to Central Illinois, where my mother was from, and parents divorced, '68, and I was a child of the '60s and '70s, so, watched the Vietnam War on the news or on TV. And that's kind of where I became infatuated with those whirlybirds and the helicopters. But yeah, as a kid, I was around Air Force bases, and then, in Illinois, grew up hunting and fishing and trapping and playing football, wrestling, playing baseball, like all kids did back then. Yeah.
Any mischief along the way, or were you pretty good kid?
Might have been a little bit. Yeah. We might have had the police looking for us a time or two. So, yeah, but yes, that's all I'll say about that.
Okay, right on. So high school athlete, popularity level.
I was just an average kid. I worked. I was always working. I pumped gas. I baled hay. I worked on my uncle's farm, ranch, and as a kid, I was always busy. That probably kept me out of a lot of trouble. But my mother was a school teacher. My grandmother was a school teacher. My aunt was a school teacher. They were all school teachers, so it was hard to get away from, with anything in my whole school career. But I worked at the Coke plant. Just whatever I could do to make a little extra money.
Do you remember what age you started working, and where it was a regular thing? You were making money and doing chores, things like that. What age did that start?
Oh, I would say probably working for my Uncle Jim at around 13 or 14, working in the hayfield, baling hay, and I was big enough to drive. So back then, you could get a farm ranch license for, if you weren't 16 yet. So, if they needed something, then Uncle Jim told me to run to town in the truck and go get whatever they needed. And, I delivered newspapers. I'd get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, go check fence or go check cows when they were having babies. Yeah, just I was always busy. Yeah, I was always busy as a kid. Sure was.
Right on. So, was there any thought of going to college, playing college sports, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually was offered 3 scholarships to play football, and I was just tired of playing football. I'd been kind of pushed down my throat my whole life, and yeah, I wanted to. Again, I was in Central Illinois. I want to move back home to East Texas. My grandmother lived there, and I wanted to rodeo. Yeah, I wanted to rope and bulldog, so that's what I did. I made a lot of people mad, and when I made that choice and chose that path. So,
chose the rodeo over playing football.
yeah, full ride scholarships to play football. So I was middle linebacker, and yeah, I loved football. I loved the sport, but I was just sick of playing football because I played it since I was a little bitty kid. And again, it was all about football, and I didn't want to play football anymore. So yeah, I just did my own thing.
You think it had anything to do with the competition level? You just needed something more? Because, I mean, seemingly rodeo's considerably more dangerous, and, it's more of a one-on-one sport compared to that team mentality.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really never thought about it that way, but it is, it's you and your horse, and that's it. So, yeah, I guess that, that challenge is what kind of drove me to do that. Yeah, and I love being horseback. I always have. I was pretty much my whole life.
Other animals? Are you just an animal lover in general, or is it really horses?
Yeah, I always had dogs, cow dogs, and we have 4 dogs now. So we have a silver lab, a Belgian Mal, a Labradoodle, and a Jack Russell.
Gotta have the little guy too.
And a cat, and 14 chickens.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess you would say you're an animal lover, right? So,
yeah.
Okay. Graduated high school. How long between the time you finished high school and the time you joined the military? And what was the deciding factor on that?
Yeah, so it was almost 7 years. I was 25 when I enlisted and talked to my dad about it. He was a career Air Force NCO. He retired as a E9. But yeah, and I talked to him about it, but I wanted to fly. And ever since I was a little kid, hanging around Air Force bases and fighter jets and things like that. So I didn't have a college degree, and that's what's required to go to the other services. But the Army they have a program, high school to flight school, and it's the Warrant Officer Flight Program. So I went and talked to them, again, talked to my father, and he recommended that I enlist. So, hey, enlist, go see how you like the Army. And at that time, I was like, I really need to go back to school. So they had the GI Bill, and I said, I think that's a great idea. So I enlisted, and I found my home in the Army. Yeah, I love the camaraderie, the challenges, the leadership. I had great leaders. I had great mentors as a young soldier. But I still continued to strive towards going to flight school. Yeah.
So you started off your career as an 11 Bravo in the infantry, right?
Infantry in the 101st.
101st.
327th, yeah, 1st Brigade.
327th. And so you spent 4 years there before you put in your warrant officer package?
3 years. Yeah, I actually as soon as I got to Campbell, kind of got settled, and then I let my bosses know that, hey, sir, this is what I want to do, and they were very supportive. And when I first got there, Colonel Ralph Hagler was the brigade commander, and he's a legend in the Ranger Regiment, but he was the 275 commander when they jumped into Grenada. So I had the opportunity to serve under Colonel Hagler, and he was very supportive of it. But yeah, and back then, it was just a long process. It probably took me almost a year to get my flight packet together. After you take the FAST test, you do a Class 1 flight physical, and then you just had to hand walk everything, or it had to go by mail, to the DA or to the boards. Or
there was no email in it.
No, there weren't even any computers, man. Yeah. So, Yeah, that's what I did. And then, yeah, we found out I'd also simultaneously, my plan was, because I just absolutely loved the Army. I did. I found a home there. And I think, all young men, if you're not quite sure where you're going or what you want to do, that's a great place to start. It gives you great skills that you'll carry for the rest of your life. And then if you do choose to make a career out of it, then, you're young enough when you retire after 20 years, you can start another profession. You can start another job or a business or whatever the case. But yeah, so I got my flight packet all put together. But my contingency plan was to go to a Ranger battalion. So I 275 had been there recruiting at Fort Campbell, and I talked to them, and I had everything kind of set up. So if I did not get into flight school, then I was gonna go to Ranger school and go be an airborne Ranger. Yeah,
and just stay in the infantry and live there at Ranger Regiment. That was your contingency, and that was. That was another very challenging place to be. So at that time, did it seem like it was just in the cards? You were gonna be able to do whatever you wanted in the military?
Sure. Yeah, and I'd also gone over and talked to a sergeant major at 5th Group. So they were very supportive. And I was an E4, and I believe then you had to be either an E4P or an E5 to go to SF. But that was another option that I looked at, was going to 5th Group and, becoming a Green Beret. Yeah, I knew nothing about Delta or, the 160th. However, being at Campbell, and that's where the 160th was, I'd see these little black helicopters flying around every now and then. So, yeah, that kind of grabbed my interest, and after some queries and questions, they're like, yeah, that's some special operations unit, here at Fort Campbell. So that kind of put the hook in me to be even more motivated to go to flight school. And yeah.
So it sounds like all of your contingencies were built around Fort Campbell. Is there a reason that because 5th Group's there, right? And then 160th there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and the Ranger battalions are, Benning, Stewart, and then Fort Lewis. So it was just, God had my path laid out for me. I just, I didn't know quite where he was going to send me, but I trusted in him, and, I prayed a lot about it. But he chose my path to go to Fort Rucker and become an Army aviator. So, yeah.
So talk a little bit about your aircraft of choice and why you pick it. And we're gonna have to throw some pictures up there for the viewers that have no idea what it is.
Yeah, so when I got to flight school, I fell in love with the Cobra gunship, the AH-1, and being a shooter, and I told my senior TAC, I was like the only one in my class that chose gunships, because the Black Hawk was just coming on. There was some talk about the AH-64 Apache getting ready to be released there in the late 80s, early 90s. But, man, I wanted to fly guns. I wanted to shoot stuff and blow shit up. And that's what I told my senior TAC. And he was like, well, Warrant Officer Candidate Coker, then AH-1s it is for you, buddy. And I learned years ago, so before you have a dream sheet in flight school, so you'll select your aircraft. Your choices back then were Hueys, OH-58s, the Scout Track, AH-1s, and then Black Hawks. Of course, most of the guys wanted the new Black Hawk technology, go fly lift, and wear skirts all day.
Wear skirts.
We tease we call them skirts, but no. And they kind of avoid us gun guys. We're just like, yeah, you guys are knuckle dragging, Neanderthals, so don't come near us. But so I got the Cobra track and was really excited about that, and then finished that up. And then my first tour was in South Korea in the 517 Cav. And man, what a great time there. I had great instructor pilots, IPs, and then the other warrants there. They took me under their wing and taught me, and And I wanted to be the best. I've always wanted to be the best at whatever I did. I didn't care if it was digging ditches or flipping burgers or pumping gas the fastest or whatever the case. I'm just driven that way. And yeah, so I get to Korea, and I wanted to be the best, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. So I studied, and my IP put me up for piloting command. Now, keep in mind, we had a real world mission then in 1990, and we flew the border with loaded aircraft. So the border of North Korea and South Korea. So I was just like, man, I'm not ready for piloting command. No, that's a lot of responsibility for a W1.
Now, what's different with piloting command?
So you have different readiness levels in aviation. So when you first get to your unit, you're in RL3, and then there's RL2, and then RL1. So you're readiness level 1. So you're ready to go into combat as a co-pilot. Okay, so then you become a pilot in command. So you're in command of that aircraft, and then you have a co-pilot that flies with you, and it could be another pilot in command, but. Yeah, it was a lot of stress on me at that time in my young aviation career. And in 8th Army, so in Korea, they had a minimum. You had to have 25 hours flight time in country before you got put up for a pilot in command. And it's an oral, a written, and then a check ride that you'll take with an instructor pilot. And come to find out later on, I was the most junior W1 that had ever been put up for piloting command in the Cobra, in the AH-1. So I had 23.5 hours at the time, and you had to have a minimum of 25 hours before you could take your piloting command check ride. So Kevin Detlefson, my IP, walked in. He says, "Hey, I'm putting you up for PIC." And I said, "No, man, I'm not ready. I don't want the response. There's a lot of responsibility." He says, "No, you're ready." And at that time, I'd done probably 2 or 3 live gunneries, and we flew a lot of night vision goggles. So I came out flying night vision goggles out of flight school. And so that paperwork has to go to Seoul to 8th Army, okay? So every unit has what's called an SIP. That's a standardization instructor pilot. And this gentleman was a CW4, Vietnam vet, flew Cobras in Vietnam. And I never will forget, his name's Mr. Manajesic. And so that paperwork made it to his desk in Seoul. So the way the story was told to me, and by the way, his nickname was the Hammer. So he was an old crusty, W4 god in the Cobra community. Everybody knew who he was. So he sees this paperwork, W1 Coker, with a total of 23.5 hours, going to take because your check ride is 1.5 hours. So that's a total of 25 hours. So it met the standard. And I told my commander, Captain Barrows, Roger Barrows, what a guy. I was like, "Sir," he's like, "you're going to do fine." So Mr. Manajesic calls my commander and says, "Hey, I will be up there to give Mr. Coker his check ride." And I was like, "Oh, no, dude. This is not going to be cool." So he shows up. The check ride lasted 3 days. Okay? 3 days.
What's the normal check ride? Just
4 hours. Yeah.
And you were 3 days.
And it lasted 3 days. So I did my written test day 1, and then I did my oral. I did an oral all 3 days. So in an oral examination, the IP asks you about the hydraulic system, the weapon systems. And we had what was the gun? It was the, I can't remember the nomenclature. M1. Anyway, it was a 20 Mike 3-barreled Gatling gun. Then we had 19-shot rocket pods. We carried 2 of those, and then the TOW missile. This is before the Hellfire came out. So I spent probably half a day talking about weapon systems, and then one morning, Mr. Majestyk, we're out pre-flighting the aircraft, and he says, "Okay, Greg," he says, "let's be a drop of hydraulic fluid today." So you have to go through the whole hydraulic systems, man, of this helicopter. And then we went through the engine, and we went, of course, emergency procedures, and then just flight capabilities of the aircraft. I mean, he put me through the ringer.
Wow.
And that's good, and I knew the answers to everything. It was good training for me as a young W1. And then I went out, we flew 2 days. So we flew just a little bit, went out and did some hover work that first day. And then long, probably a 2-hour pre-flight that takes you usually 15 minutes on a normal day. And, but again, he wanted to ensure that, I could meet these standards and for piloting command. So then we went and flew, and yeah, man, the guy was just, I had to navigate, I had to fly the border without a map. So, using terrain, because you don't want to overfly the border because bad things happen to you.
That's right.
Like North Korea doesn't like U.S. aircraft entering their airspace. But, yeah, we did a bunch of terrain flight and then auto rotations. We did emergency procedures in the aircraft. We did instruments. So in case, you go into the clouds, you have to be able to recover that aircraft on instruments back into the airfield. Or I think then SOAR had a precision approach radar, so we went down, shot some PARs, ILS. I don't remember. We didn't have much in the gunship, so as far as flight instruments for flying in the clouds or instrument type environment, and and then the last day, and I had to fly both front seat and back seat, so I'd switch. We'd go land, we'd switch out, and we'd swapped out. I was back in the back seat and took off, and we were flying around, went through a couple airfields, and we have a rear view mirror in the front seat, and I see him, he looks in the mirror, and he goes, "Greg, I have the controls." I said, "Roger that." Man, I've been sweating bullets, for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Flying with this legend, and man, he showed me how to fly that helicopter. He could make that thing dance, and we probably went and flew we came into Camp Mobile, got gas, and then took off, and we had night vision goggles. Yeah, the second night I flew night vision goggles for about an hour and a half, and just, same procedures, takeoffs, landings, pinnacles, going into confined areas. I just wanted to make sure I was safe, and I knew what I was doing.
Sure.
And, he had a big old grin on his face. Says, "Greg, I have the controls."
I got it, man.
And man, holy cow! I learned so much in that hour just flying with that master, of that helicopter. Yeah, I never will forget him, Mr. Majestyk, the Hammer. Thank you, Mr. Majestyk, if you ever watch or you see this.
That's so cool. So I got an opportunity to go fly in. I flew a lot in Korea when I was there. But then I went back with SF, and so now we're flying 47s. Mm-hmm. And we were on I don't remember what mission we were on. Regardless, I remember we were with 160th, mm-hmm. and when I'd look out, all I'd see is power lines everywhere.
Oh,
in
Lord,
Korea,
yeah,
they were so high, everywhere. And they were everywhere, right? I mean, tell me you weren't timid seeing those things out there.
Oh, yes, man. I call them cowboy catchers, all the wires, because there were wires everywhere, man, and you had to do good route recons, and there were a few times where they had caught the South Koreans stringing wire and string across valleys. So, and then it would get caught up in your tail rotor. It wouldn't cause you to crash or anything, but it would cause damage to the aircraft. And it was just crazy stuff like that. It was. But when I got there, so when I was enlisted, I had Colonel Ralph Hagler was the brigade commander, so met him. Then I went off to flight school. Then we had another colonel change command with Colonel Hagler. And so I'm in Korea, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days, okay? And commander screams out, "Mr. Coker, get my office now." And I was like, "Oh, Lord." And he's got the phone, he's got the phone against his chest. He goes, "What in the Sam Hill have you been doing?" I said, "Sir, I hadn't been here but like 5 days. I've been in my room studying, or working out." And he goes, I said, "What's up, sir?" He goes, "This is Chief of Staff of 2 IDs on the phone wanting to talk to Mr. Coker." I said, I don't know the chief of staff of the doggone 2nd Infantry Division. So he hands me the phone, and I said, "Hello, Mr. Coker." "Coke, it's Ralph Hagler." And I said, "Oh my gosh." He was chief of staff of 2ID.
Oh, wow.
He had just gotten there. And he kind of followed me, through flight school. And he came to my graduation when I graduated flight school. But yeah, he was like, "I'm sending my driver over, come get you. I want you to come hang out." So yeah, and then he'd call me, and once I made PIC, I could fly a single pilot in the Cobra. He's like, "Come get me." So I was like, "Roger that, sir.
Come pick me up."
So I'd tell the commander, I was like, "Hey, sir." He's like, go, do great things,
Oh, wow.
And then he'd tell me to land in the general's helipad. And so I did the first time. Oh, my goodness, man, this major comes running out. "You can't land here. You can't land here." I said, "Sir, I'm here picking up Colonel Hagler." He's like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's okay, but don't wait too long." Of course, here come Hag. He comes running out, and jumps in the front seat. And yeah, we'd just take off and go fly. And he'd tell me stories about when he was in Vietnam. He was like, "I got 82 hours in the front seat of a Cobra, da-da-da-da." And or we'd fly down to Seoul to the O Club and have lunch, And, yeah, it was fun. And for a young aviator, man, Korea was a blessing. It just was, because of all the different trains that you got to fly in. So I got to get mountain qualified, over water qualified. We flew in snow, we flew in a little bit of urban around Seoul. So yeah, what a great experience for me, as a brand new W1 to get there and do that. I didn't want to go. I left a 7-month pregnant wife at the time.
Oh, that's always hard.
My senior TAC, he's like, "Well, Greg, if the Army wanted you to have a family, we would have issued you a family."
That's right.
But he told me, he says, "Hey," I actually swapped with another guy, and he was having some hardship, and he was going to Campbell because I'd asked to go to Campbell. They have a Cobra unit there. But senior TAC told me, he says, "Hey, I'm going to get you an Apache transition and then orders back to Campbell." I said, "Okay, yes, sir. That's fair." But yeah, I'm glad I did it. And yeah, that was South Korea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the train you talk about there, it's different when you're walking it.
Sure.
Definitely hilly, definitely cold, triple freeze.
Yeah, it got so cold once. We went up to Rodriguez Range for live fire training for 8 or 10 days, and the Cobras froze to the ground. We couldn't get them. We had Herman Nelsons out there. Our poor crew chiefs, man, they worked, and we were finally, commander's like, "Just leave them. It's going to warm up in a couple of days, and we can get them unstuck." So we just hung out in the tent and played poker for a couple of days.
Yeah, and if you don't know Korea cold, then you don't know. It's brutal.
Yeah, it is brutal. Winters. Yeah, I thought back to in the 50s and the Korean War, those poor guys up at the Frozen Chosen, or I experienced that cold. And I can't imagine, man, what those poor GIs went through.
No, man.
Back then.
Okay, so do you get your wish then? You do your year in Korea, learn everything you could possibly learn over there, and then they send you out to Fort Campbell?
Yeah, and so Desert Shield started when I was in Korea in 1990. And, of course, all of us, man, we're gun guys. We need to get in the war, and just on and on and on. And so DA calls me, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Coker, you're going to get a drop. So you have to do, let's see, it was 10 months and like 3 days to get credit for your unaccompanied tour to Korea."
Yep.
And I said, "Really?" No, he starts off, he says, "Hey, I got a Christmas present for you." And I was like, oh, Lord, what now, you know? So that was it. And, of course, I tell all my buddies, they're not happy. What's this W1? You know, he gets a drop. And some of those, because there was a stop loss they instituted. And nobody could leave unless you had orders for an Apache transition. And I had those orders in my hands.
No.
So, yep. So at 10 months, 2 days, I de-roast and headed back to the States. And I got home the day the war ended. So in 91, February sometime. And then I got home, pardon me. I got home, Fort Rucker calls me. Says, hey, Mr. Coker, we need you down here in 2 days to start the Apache course. And I was like, well, why? You know, the war's over. Well, we don't, this is what we've got. So you got to be here. So I get in my truck, kiss, you know, Mama and the baby and say, well, I'll see you later. So I headed to Rucker, and then they had somewhat of a shortened version of the Apache transition. And, you know, I'd already had a tour as a Cobra guy, so it was more of a gentleman's course than, you know, being a brand new student out of flight school. I didn't get beat up too bad, but yeah, it was a good time. And my good buddy Bruce Irwin, which he had been in Korea, he was a maintenance test pilot. He had been in Half Attack, and he had an Apache transition. So it was me and him and 10 Israelis. It was the first class of Israelis to go through the Apache transition because Israel had just bought the AH-64 Apache. And man, we had a good time with those guys.
How was that? I was going to ask you.
It was a lot of fun. It really was. They're very professional soldiers, pretty good pilots. They were all Cobra guys, and had been sent over to attend that first class flying the AH-64. And my buddy Bruce, he was a big skier. He had a ski nautique, ski boat that he had brought with him. So we flew in the mornings. So it was cut in half, the class was. So there was a morning flight, and then there was an afternoon flight. And then you're supposed to study when you weren't flying. Well, me and Bruce would load up, get the boat, we'd go ski out on the lake back when Rucker had a lake. And there's a bridge that I think it's called Lake Tulaco, if I remember. But anyway, there was a bridge across the lake, and that was one of the checkpoints for the Apaches when they left Hanchy Army Airfield and then flew out into the training areas. Well, Bruce and I'd always be right there at that bridge, and there's our IP would see us, and we'd see him, we'd wave at him, he'd shake his finger at us, you guys go study, you know? And we're like, bah! See you in the morning. Tommy was his name. Yeah, good dude. And of course, the next morning, we'd be like, okay, we're going to do emergency procedures, you know? We're like, whatever. What are you going to do? Send me to Korea? Okay, whatever, man.
That's a good running joke, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, Bruce and I had a really good time during that. And he went off and did great things. And then I went to the first of the 101st at Fort Campbell when I finished. And battalion commander was then Lieutenant Colonel Cody, which later became Vice Chief Staff of the Army as a 4-star.
Wow.
But yeah, I was very grateful to have him as a commander. He's a great leader. He knew aviation inside and out. He knew every part of those helicopters. Just a very, very intelligent man. And and we had a very good relationship. We did. And then next commander came in. And at that point, I was like, man, now I knew about the 160th. You know, I learned about them.
What did you know about them?
Nothing more than they were a special operations unit, and they flew Loaches or Little Birds and Blackhawks in 1991. Yeah, and the guys, you know, they were like, yeah, man, they're here. We never see them. They were called the Night Stalkers, and they fly at night. And I remember, though, one time we'd just come out of the field when I was enlisted, and we were sitting in the back parking lot, you know, cleaning weapons. And just normal stuff when you come out of the field. And here come 4 little birds. Their route was right over 1st Brigade right there. And I was kind of gawking at them, and because they were pretty close. And I was like, oh, man, now those are cool helicopters right there. And my platoon sergeant, he said something. He's like, Coach, get back to work. Quit looking at those. Those aren't here. Or something like that. And I was like, okay, Sarge. I said, I'm going to fly those one day. And he was like, shut up. No, you're not. Man, I always wished I could have found that guy later on in my career and say, hey, Sarge, check this out. This is my AH, But no, so, and then one of my neighbors I became really good friends with, Jerry Hart. And he was from Texas. Actually, I had a roping dummy out in front. We lived on post. And I was roping my roping dummy, calf roping. And man, here comes this big old dually. And he comes to a stop. He's like, hey, I'm Jerry Hart. And I said, okay. And he puts the cowboy hat on, and he comes walking up, shake hands. And so we start talking. He used to cowboy and rodeo, and he was in B Company, first and 160th. He flew AHs, so we became very good friends. And and he was, it's like, hey, man, get your packet in once you get to a certain hour level. Now, back then, the 160th had minimums. So you had to have 1,000 hours of flight time and then 100 hours of night vision goggles.
Okay.
So when I came out of Korea, we flew a bunch of goggles, and then in first of the 101st, we flew a bunch of night vision goggles. The front seaters did. So I had like 200 and around 40 hours of night vision goggles.
Oh, wow. And
I had like 640 hours of flight time total. So, and then through Jerry, I met Mark Jones. No, he was he was platoon leader, but later he became company commander of B Company. So I'd talk to Mark about it, and he was like, man, I would go ahead and put my packet in. He said, you got double night vision goggle time.
Sure.
But your flight time's not quite there. He says, just do it, and, what are they going to do? Say, hey, come back when you get 1,000 hours or whatever. So I did that, put my packet in. They called, says, hey, you got an assessment date. And everything happened really, really fast because you're right there at Campbell, so they don't have to TDY you or move you or any of those things. So I went, did my assessment. It lasted a week, and I got picked up. Yeah. But the board told me they took a chance on Greg Coker. They did. And the board told me, says, hey, Greg, you're not quite there on flight time, but you got 240 hours of night vision goggles.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
That's significant too.
Yeah. So everything worked out, and found myself in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment as a junior W2.
Now, what year is this?
That's 1993.
So 93.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 1993. So went through Green Platoon. That lasted probably 8 months. And and then went to B Company.
So you're in B Company, fully qualified from 94. And what's your daily look like? A lot of training, a lot of trips. What's going on?
All that, all the above. It's some guys say it's hard to get here and it's harder to stay. The op tempo of that unit was unbelievable. It's incredible. They called it the train. The train never stops. So you better hang on. But so our primary mission is to provide close air support to the ground force, Special Operations Ground Force, which now I can say the words. Back then we had to talk in colors because it was still Delta, the Rangers, and the 160th. Were close held names that you did not say. So they had a color designated. So 160th was TF Brown, Delta, TF Green, the Rangers, TF Red, and then SEAL Team 6 was TF Blue. So if we were out or, talking about it, then we'd say the color. Hey, we're going to Bragg to work with green.
Sure.
We're going to Benning to work with red. So that's kind of how it went in the old days. So they still kept little birds out south of Main Post and what's called shock pad, and they have bunkers there. But they kept the little birds in those bunkers. They kept them hidden, and then moved them up to Campbell Army Airfield on the other side of the airfield when I was there. And they had moved out of the bunkers. So, but yeah, it was just, I pinched myself every day. I'd be like, what in the world am I doing here? These guys, I walked in their shadows, and they were giants to me. But man, what a great unit, and best leaders, best NCOs, best warrant officers, and they are the best pilots in the world, bar none. I watched them land some of those helicopters in places I wouldn't dream about landing in. But yeah, it was hard. You worked your tail off 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day. But back then, you'd go to the range and shoot 3 times a week, at least. Yeah. And that was our job. But there is a progression, like, in Cobra's RL1, RL2, RL3, pilot in command. So when you get there, you're a BMT, a basic mission trained pilot. You have to learn how to shoot the way we shoot and to the standards of which we shoot. So it takes about 18 to 24 months to teach a pilot how to shoot that helicopter. And we carried 2 M134 miniguns and then 2 7-shot rocket pods on the AH-6. And there's 2 Little Bird companies in the 160th. A company, they fly the MH-6. So that's the one with the planks on the side of the helicopter.
Okay.
And they can put, 2 or 3 customers. I still say customers. They can put 2 or 3 soldiers on each side of the aircraft. So they can take, 4 with the new Mike model. I believe they can put 6 and a dog on that helicopter. And they can land on, rooftop or a narrow road or anywhere that you can land the helicopter. You only need 27 feet, so the diameter of the rotor will clear, whatever you're going to go into. So watch those guys. But yeah, and then navigation. So you have to be an expert in navigation. All right, and the ground force knows that we will be at that target plus or minus 30 seconds. Plus or minus 30 seconds. And that's flying for 30 minutes or 4 hours. It doesn't matter.
That's the length of a TV commercial. Within that timeline,
60
right?
seconds.
60 seconds.
Yes. And you must do that with a map, a compass, and a clock. No electronics, no GPS. Man, they got more gee-whiz stuff now in those helicopters than I would have ever thought of. But that's the standard in which we live by. And you have to, because the ground force depends on you to be at that target on time, plus or minus 30 seconds.
So when you're in your planning then, because plus or minus 30 seconds, if I'm going from here to 10 miles down the road,
yeah,
plus or minus 30 seconds seems pretty attainable. But when you guys are setting up your planning, it's a considerable distance, right?
It is. Yeah, it might be. Well, like I said, like in Baghdad, it might be 20 minutes to the target, or it might be 4-hour flight to the target.
But the standard is the standard.
Plus or minus 30 seconds.
Wow.
And if you don't meet the standard, then you get 101st patches. Yeah. If you can't shoot or if you can't navigate to standard, then they ask you to leave or they tell you to leave. So I probably, in my tenure there, probably saw, probably 8 or 10 guys come and go for one reason or another. So sometimes it was family. Hey, they get it. But, if they couldn't shoot and if they couldn't navigate to the target plus or minus 30 seconds, then they were told to leave. But,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's a high standard.
And, you know, and all the ground force that we work with, they will tell you that the Night Stalkers, they are the best planners in any unit in the world. And we are. We plan down to, I mean, plus or minus 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Along those routes, figuring fuel, you know, do we have to stop and get ammo or whatever the case. But yeah, it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. But everything we do, anything that's written, gets triple checked. So 3 sets of eyes look at everything that we're going to do.
Wow.
Because we make mistakes.
Sure, we're human.
And that, you know, to me, that was always one thing that stuck out. That, yeah, if I make a mistake, then, you know, number 2 or number 3 guy is going to catch it and we'll fix it. As long as it's nothing major.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break. If you don't mind, do us a favor, hit that like button. Let us know if we're doing a good job. We appreciate you. So we're pre 9/11 still, right?
Yes.
So
yes, late 90s up until 9/11, and yeah, one thing, and you know, again, and you know, this is for any young soldier out there. You know, always work hard, and you know, try to be the best you can be. And so when I was in Korea, we have a Top Gun competition for 8th Army, and then they also have one in CONUS, or in the States. So in the Cobra, we do a PT test, and then you shoot with your pistol. We still had revolvers when I was in Korea. Oh yeah, and then you're in 16. Yes, sir, buddy. Hey, we were Cav, man.
wow.
And but yeah, so you do PT tests, and then you go to the range and shoot, and you're graded on all this, and then you do an oral exam with the SIP, so the senior instructor pilot for that unit, and you do a written test, and then you go out to the aircraft. You do a day-night navigation route, so daytime night vision goggle, and then you go to the range and live fire. So
That's
they have
awesome.
standard tables, okay, in accordance with the AR. And then, so yeah, I won Top Gun that year in Korea, but that was because I had a great IP. I flew with my IP, Kevin Detlefson, call sign Leopard.
Leopard.
Yeah. And then I get to Fort Campbell, first to the 101st, and then, let's see, 91, 92, I won Top Gun competition. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was honored, and you know, work hard. You're rewarded for hard work.
Sure.
You know, and God is always watching over me because I'm a bit of a knucklehead. But so yeah, same thing. You know, you do PT tests, oral, written, go to the range, shoot your weapons, and then you go live fire day and night. Again, to the, you know, the tables that they have for gunnery and attack helicopters. Yeah. So that was cool.
How often would you guys do those kind of competitions? I mean, because you said
Just
you got
once a year.
Okay, so as far as you guys were doing your evals, how long did it last for? Once you were qualified, fully mission capable, and
Yeah, you have progression.
Yep.
You know, you have to progress from RL3, RL2, RL1, and then you're a combat ready aviator.
and how long do you hold that qual until you have to kind of recert for it?
No, once you're RL1, you know, you stay at that, and then you become a pilot in command, and then then you can go to the IP course and become an instructor pilot. So
it's not a currency thing necessarily. Then it's a
No.
skill level that you're working
it's
through.
a skill level. And in 160th, I'll get back to, so you come out of Green Platoon, that's the training platoon, and then you go to your company, and you go to the company as a BMT, so a basic mission trained pilot. So you continuously work on your navigation. Sure. We'd go fly, you know, pretty much every night. And you have additional duties also, like you're the NBC guy or the arms room guy or the pubs guy. Or as a new guy, you're the fridge bitch. So you got to make sure that fridge, man, has got what the guys like. And, you know, you're the new dude. You're the FNG, the cherry, or whatever they call you that day or week. But the refrigerator was a very important responsibility.
I think that's across the board. When you get to the team, that is your responsibility, and you should own it, and you should try to make you should try to do the best job you possibly can with it, right?
You bet. It's all part of the process, man. It's all part of the process. You know, it's the same pretty much everywhere. And the beer fridge, you made sure that beer fridge was stocked too. But yeah, so you work on your shooting because in the AH, we have no electronic sights. All it is a grease pencil mark on the windscreen. I'm not kidding. And we've tested every kind of sight, every kind of electronic you can think of. And Fred Horsley said one time, the human brain's the fastest computer on the planet. And he is probably right. So we take a grease pencil, Army issue, and then you have to figure out, because you sit in that seat, and it's not like a pistol sight or a rifle sight. We have a rear sight and front sight. It's one plane. It's one, that grease pencil mark on the windscreen.
It's your front sight post.
That's it. So you have to, you got to figure out your seating position. You can't move your head left or right or raise, because it's going to throw everything off.
Absolutely.
And the standards to which we were held to shoot, it just takes time to teach a guy, one, where to get it. Well, one, to fly the helicopter, okay? And then two, to get that pipper set wherever he needs it, where he is going to be accurate.
So the pilot is the gunner?
No, it's whoever's flying shoots.
Okay.
In the helicopter.
So whoever's got control of
whoever's on the controls is shooting, okay? And then the other guys either they're navigating, they're talking on radios, listening to the radios, operating the weapon systems for the person flying, because his whole focus is find that target, find the friendlies, engage that target, and then break, and get off of it, come back around, get ready for the next engagement. You always have a wingman with you, and everyone always said the hardest job in the Army is being -2 in a flight of AHs. So that wingman, his whole mission in his life is to protect lead, because lead has the mission to go in there, find that target, and shoot that target, while -2 kind of hangs back. And everybody that flies in -2 or the trail aircraft has their own techniques, and some guys will go high, some guys low, some guys right, left. It just depends on that individual gun pilot as to where he wants to set himself up to protect lead. So that's his whole mission in life. And so then after BMT, you go to the range, you'll shoot for a few weeks, and then you're BMQ, so you're basic mission qualified, and you're a pilot in command. Okay, so and the pilots that come, you're mid-career, 1,000 hours, 100 hours of goggles. So, you're about a mid-career, 8 to 10 year aviator. Okay. You've been a pilot in command, I hope, or an IP, and then you're a BMQ. So then you start working towards your FMQ, which is fully mission qualified aviator, and that's across the board in the regiment. But once you make FMQ, then you're a combat-ready pilot. And used to, that was the only guys that flew in combat were FMQs. So you work towards taking your FMQ check ride, and it's a very long, detailed check ride. It takes you I think you have 96 hours to plan it when they put you up for it. But you're prepared when you take the check ride.
Sure.
And you shoot, and shoot some more. And I love shooting, and I love that helicopter. But so it takes a while to get for a guy to figure out where his pipper is. So some guys would use a tape measure. They'd measure up, and then either from the right or from the left, and then they put their mark, and then you'd always make it bigger at night so you could see it under night vision goggles. And then for me, it was rivets. I counted 21 rivets up, and I'm left eye dominant. So on this plane, it went over the inside of my left pedal and 21 rivets up, and I'd make my mark. And that was standard in every helicopter. Yeah, some guys would use a piece of string. They'd measure up, measure over, and well, there's your pipper. So everybody's is different. No two are the same because guys are different height.
Right.
They're right eye dominant or whatever the case. So
did you always sit in the same position on the little bird?
In the seats?
Yes.
No, you're always right seat. You're always changing seats.
Okay.
But the primary seat, the pilot in command sits in the right seat for military aircraft. Yeah, civilian aircraft, I don't know why it's backwards, but the pilot in command sits in the left seat in all civilian aircraft. So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. So, yeah, you spend the next, year and a half working towards your FMQ, your fully mission qualified.
So real quick for the guys and gals at home that are considering this as a career, you mentioned high school to flight school, right? Mm-hmm. Something along those lines. So if somebody was just shit hot, what's kind of that fastest progression you've seen where they go from flight school, make it to the Night Stalkers, and get fully mission qualified?
Oh, goodness. Probably 4 years.
Okay.
And we tried and I didn't know much about it, but they did a test, and they took guys from the Special Operations community, so Rangers or Delta guys that were in flight school, and then they came directly to the 160th to fly Chinooks. Yeah, because part of your training is to learn and work with all the different Tier 1 units.
Sure.
So Delta, ST6, and then the Rangers. So you have to learn, their scheme maneuver, their, everything that they do. So that also takes time. So, you're TDY all the time. So you're either Benning or Bragg or Fort Lewis or Virginia Beach, going and doing those trainings. Yeah, to learn the different customers. I still refer to them. So, yeah, those are our customers. And, it's fast-paced. It's hard work. And, you just do what you need to do, for sure.
Wow. So you got to the 160th then. What year was that? About 97?
93.
93 you got there. Okay. And any combat missions between 93 and the time you got there and the invasion?
I did not. I was in Green Platoon during Mogadishu, the Battle of the Black Sea in October of 93. And, we just... I don't remember what phase we were in, but anyway, probably mountain phase or desert phase. And, I remember the C-5s landing and boys loading up, and off they went. Yeah, didn't see them till... That was probably, I don't remember when it was, man. Probably September. And then they came back right after October. Yeah, like October 7th or 8th when they returned to Campbell in 93. Yeah, we didn't see anything. We had Democrats in office, and nothing happened. We spun up a few times for real world missions, and it was pretty exciting. At the time, those of us in B Company, none of us had any combat experience except for a couple that were in Mogadishu. And, they had retired in the next 2 or 3 years. So, by 96, 97, none of us had any combat experience. Yeah, we were all cherries. Practicing, I think I said earlier, it's like, you practice, and you don't ever get to go to the game. Well, you want to test your skills, doggone it.
That's right.
And especially being at that level, you got the best chance of anybody to go in and seeing some action or going into combat. So I always told the guys, be careful what you wish for. And then 9/11 came. It was nonstop for many years.
Do you remember where you were at when 9/11 happened? And
absolutely.
What was going on?
Absolutely. Yeah, we had one group in Europe training. We had another group on the East Coast training, and we have to keep a group at Campbell 24/7, 365, ready to roll out. So that was us back at Campbell, and we'll go with 4 AHs and then 8 pilots and 8 crew chiefs and 8 armament personnel. Yeah, I was at the gym. We had a range that day. We were shooting, and I got to the gym probably around 10:30, and because nobody's ever there. It was right there in Werner Park. We had a nice little gym. The guy that ran the gym was a retired SEAL. And, I was on a treadmill running. None of the TVs were on or anything. And he came walking. I saw him come in the door, and he was almost ashen. He was pale. And I looked at him, and he walked over to me, and he got the remote. He says, "Greg, you need to see this." And he turned the TV on. So I'm sitting there staring, and I kind of, jump up, put my feet to the side so I don't fall on my face, I'm trying to watch the TV. And this, the tire was on burning. And I go, he was what's an E9 in the Navy, like Command Master Chief.
I think that's right.
Retired. And I said, "Master Chief, what in the world's going on?" He goes, "A plane hit it." Well, being a pilot, I'm like, it's clear blue and beautiful day. How does a daggum airplane run into one of the twin towers in New York City? And then, it wasn't 10 seconds later, boom, here goes number 2. And my beeper went off. So we all carried beepers. I looked at it and I said, I gotta go. So I ran to the car, hauled Bud out to the airfield, and I was probably, second or third guy there because I lived on post. Some of the guys lived off post. And we started doing our jobs. We got ready to deploy because a C5 will show up and we'll load on it and we'll go. So get in the office, our ops officer was there, and we were all just, running around getting our stuff ready. Business as normal, as usual. Of course, we were like, what in the world's going on? What happened? What? Da-da-da-da-da. And so the opso, he was like, "Hey, Greg, you guys keep on. I'm going down to regiment to see what's going on." And I remember he called back and he says, "Hey, another plane just hit the Pentagon." And, we were like, and we had TVs in our pilot room. And so the TVs came on and we all just kind of stopped. And I told the crew chiefs and dogs, I said, "Hey, you guys come in here." And, we're all like, "What is?" I said, "Hey, a plane just hit the Pentagon." They were like, "What?" Like, holy smokes, we're under attack. Yeah. And then a couple hours later, we heard about Flight 93 there in Pennsylvania, which an F-16 shot that airplane down by orders. Not too many people. It's out there now. But yeah, the F-16, I actually met the pilot that pushed the missile off. Female. She was the flight lead. But it was headed to the White House.
Wow.
That plane was. So
I hadn't heard that.
Yep. That's what happened. And it was unfortunate, but we're at war, and we continued to prepare, get ready. We got the aircraft ready, all our gear. Everything's there at the hangar, clothes and everything we need. And then Captain came back, and he's like, "Man, we just don't know much, So we hung out the rest of the day, And then, of course, everything was grounded. So our team in Europe, they couldn't go anywhere. Our team on the East Coast, they couldn't get home. And it was just, okay, well, let's go. Where are we going?
Right.
And then I came back in that night, attended a couple briefings with the OPSO and from higher headquarters. And then, next couple days, but it was eerie, man, because, they shut the post down. There were helicopters flying every night, all night, just all over, housing area on post. I never will forget the next morning I drove into our hangars, and our hangars are on the other side of Campbell Army Airfield. We're out there by ourselves, our compound. And they had armed guards there, but you either turn right to go to the main airfield or you go left to the 160th. And there were 2 Humvees with 50 cals, but I remember the sun glinting off those 50 cal rounds.
Yeah. Off that brass.
It really hit. I was like, holy smokes, man, what is going on? Of course, everybody was scared. They shut schools down. Everything got shut down. And, I went to some intel briefs, and, things started to come in. Let the situation develop, I always say. But I will say this. Just first reports were just crazy and coming from everywhere. But in my experience, 99% of the time, first reports are always wrong.
That's right.
Because they're under stress, they're under duress. They haven't let the situation develop. They haven't gained information or intel. So sometimes you just have to squat and hold and let that situation develop to get good information so you don't put out bad information.
That's right.
And so, we were, waiting. Of course, the country was in chaos. Americans were scared, and we just wanted to load up and go get somewhere. But I think there was an idea that probably Afghanistan, that part of the world. So we started pulling maps and, just trying to lean forward in the foxhole and put things together. Again, our crews were still scattered. They couldn't get home. And, we were all prepared and we were ready to go. And then we got a call to go to Fort Bragg to do some planning out there with Delta. And so we made a trip out there for 4 or 5 days, came back, stayed home for a couple more days. Commander made it back. They got him back, and then a couple of the senior guys. And so we started, I was like, hey, it looks like we're going to go to Afghanistan. Okay, we're hunting bin Laden. We're like, who? Who's bin Laden,
Right.
Oh, it's Al Qaeda, Who's Al Qaeda?
Right.
Who's this or who's that? And where's Afghanistan? Oh, that place where the Russians got their asses kicked. Yeah, okay, great. So, we continued the planning process and planning with the ground force. Of course, by now we had the 160 Delta and the Rangers. 375, they were the alert battalion, and then C Squadron. So worked with them, and I started putting the plan together. And I was approached by Colonel Schwitter, or no, it was B Squadron. B Squadron. And I was approached by Colonel Schwitter at the time. He was the regimental commander for Delta, and then my good friend, Master Sergeant Leon Hansen. He was the B Squadron FSNCO, so he was the senior fire support sergeant for B Squadron. And we're at Bragg, and Leon walked up, put his arm around me, and Colonel Schwitter says, Gregory? And when I hear Gregory,
Uh-oh.
I was like, what now? My brother, Gregory Scott, come here, you're getting a whipping. He's like, look, I need a fire support officer for TF Sword. We've been named Task Force Sword. And Leon had his arm around me, squeezing me tighter and tighter. And because their FSO had just left, and they were waiting on a new fire support officer, commission guy. And he hadn't got there yet, which he did in the process, and he did deploy with us. But he's, brand new guy, brand new FSO. He really didn't have, a good idea of what we do. And so I said, sir, I'm an AH-6 pilot. I want to go shoot somebody. And what was it on? Oh, Lonesome Dove, when Captain Gus McCrae said, I always wanted to shoot an educated man. So I looked at Leon, I said, I always wanted to shoot an educated man. And yeah, we all kind of laughed about it. And Colonel Schwitter says, well, Greg, you're going to get your chance. But I need you as a fire support officer. And I said, sir, no. And Leon squeezed tighter. And
brother.
He goes, look, I'm going to get you in the AH to go do some missions. But right now, I need an FSO. And I said, roger that, sir. I'm your guy. Yep. I said, I'll be the FSO for T.F. Brown and for the task force. So, yeah, that was that. And I was kind of a bit upset about it, but then I was honored that, Colonel Schwitter had the trust and confidence in me, to do that job. And with Leon. So Leon and I we've been bros for many years at that point.
Well, let me ask you this for, those of us that don't understand exactly what the FSO job is. So you're an AH-6 pilot, and now you're being asked to be a fires officer. How is that different than what you normally do? Are you not piloting anymore, or what are you doing?
I wouldn't be. So the job of a fire support officer is to coordinate fires for the ground force. So artillery, bombers, mortars, whatever is going to be put into that battle or into that mission. So the fire support officer, he plans and coordinates fires for the ground force. That's your job. So who better than an AH guy? Because we have to work with all those fires. So coordination on the battlefield, we have to coordinate with everybody that's sending rounds downrange. Artillery, bombers, fighters, support by fire, all those fires that are supporting the ground force.
And where are you located while you're doing this job?
We're all at Masura Island. So we deploy, that's a little bitty island off the coast of Oman. And the task force deployed there. They looked at some other countries, but they wouldn't let us in, or they wouldn't let us fly over. So Oman says, yeah, you can, go to Masura Island. And the ironic thing about that was that 20 years earlier, Desert One, that's where they launched from. Colonel Beckwith and Delta launched from Masura Island in 1980 to go rescue the hostages in Iran.
Wow.
21 years earlier.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, 2001 to 1980. Yeah. It was kind of creepy. That was cool. But that, we had that there at that place, and yeah, just thinking back to those guys. Anyway, so the task force gets there. So we had B Squadron, we had 375 Rangers, and then the 160th. And yeah, so we take over the island. And we got there into September. My first taskings were to take an AC-130U, a gunship, and start to set the conditions in country. So I'd get on the airplane, we'd brief, we'd come up with a plan, and just find targets of opportunity, armor, troops, Al-Qaeda, whomever. And then my other job was to select a route for the other helicopters that were going to fly the ground force to the target. And that was Objective Gecko on 19 October 2001. And then the other objective was Objective Rhino. It was an airfield south and west of Kandahar. I don't remember how far. It wasn't that far away though, but it was a ranch that they called it. And yeah, it was an asphalt. I remember looking at some overhead photos, and there was a 737 sitting on the ramp there. So it would, it would hold big jets. And,
Sure.
And that told us that, yeah, we can land 130s there, or, whatever we need to land there. And then a picture a few days later, that jet was gone. So they had landed and then they had taken off.
Okay.
So it didn't just disappear. It was in the middle of nowhere, And, so the ground force went on an aircraft carrier, and they deployed out there on the ship, and all of our Chinooks, and then 4 of the DAPs. So a DAP is an armed Black Hawk. So, and they're aerial refuel capable. So they don't have to land to get gas. They got a probe on them like the Chinooks. And then an MC-130P, a Papa model, is a tanker. So en route, they could hit gas and, continue on. So I continued to operate in country, Afghanistan. I think we did 8 missions, to set the conditions and to reconnaissance the route for the helicopters. So I chose the route and then sat down with the Chinook guys, went over it. They gave it a thumbs up. And and that's the route that they took to Gecko off the ship on 19 October 2001. Yeah. Then we flew a couple times over Objective Rhino. 375 Rangers did an airfield seizure. They did a combat jump into that objective that evening, that night, and secured it. And that would be the FARP, the forward arming refueling point for all the helicopters that came off Objective Gecko. Yep. And so the conditions were set. And yeah, dude, it was some pretty exciting times, I gotta tell you. And AHs, I think they'd done a couple missions. That we were all just trying to figure out what the heck to do, and where to go and when to do it. Now, then we had 5th Special Forces Group, Green Berets. They were up north. So they were going to come from the north, push south. We were going to come from the south, push north, close the gap, and, kill or capture Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Yes. That was kind of the big picture, big plan to, as far as our operations went.
So, as you're going in and you're setting the conditions, at what point do you start going live on targets? And is that part of setting the conditions?
Oh, yeah. First night.
It was already live. It went right away.
Yep. Yeah, and unfortunately, there were administrations before President Bush administration that had pulled all those assets out of that part of the world. We had very little intelligence on that country. We had no assets, humans there. So, we kind of had to shoot in the dark and, just figured things out as we went along. They had actually, somebody had put a suggestion box I'm not kidding, when you walked in the tent we'd put up for our talk, our Tactical Operations Center. They'd put on a desk, hey, and General Daly, he was our task force commander, he told us always, like, you guys have an idea, man, put it in the box.
Really?
We'll read it. We'll look at it. Yeah, we were coming up with all kind of, back to World War II tactics.
Wow.
Yeah, just trying to figure out, we operated a lot to the east of Kandahar. That's where a big airfield and Taliban and Al-Qaeda, because we wanted the enemy to think that we were going to jump into that airfield.
Okay.
So, kind of, misrepresenting or I can't think of the word right now, but yeah, so we wanted them to, think we were going to come into there and kind of put their eyes to the east and the target gecko was Omar's, his place, his ranch, and his home. We thought maybe that Bin Laden may be there, he may be there, Omar and Bin Laden both, and then some of his leadership would be there at that target. So that's why we chose it.
So the Rangers jumped into that target. And...
No, they jumped into Rhino. They jumped into the airfield.
Okay.
Southwest for the FARP. And then our target was right on the western edge of Kandahar, the city, just outside the city limits, kind of.
And were y'all landing or just kind of setting that false insertion setup?
No, they air landed. So we had 6 Chinooks and then 4 DAPs. We actually had 8 Chinooks. 2 were spare. And then we had casualty evacuation. They would act as medevac. We had our medics and docs on there. And then if, something broke en route, or it was a contingency, and then the 4 DAPs. So we had two DAPs for contingency. We have a no-fail mission. So we plan for contingencies. That's what I always said. Well, that's what's going to save me is my contingencies, because the plan always goes to shit in the hand basket, man. When the first round's launched, it's like what the Russians say, we practice controlled chaos. You can't defeat the Americans; they practice controlled chaos every day. So yeah, that was kind of funny, but. Yeah, so they air landed with B Squadron and, hit that target on my mission that night. So we had 5 AC-130s. I took 3 to Gecko, and then the other 2 went to Rhino to support the Rangers. So they're a fire support platform. An AC-130 has a 25 millimeter Gatling gun, a 40 millimeter Bofors cannon, and then the 105.
Gotta love that howitzer.
I love that howitzer, man. It's just cool to see that airplane in action shooting bad guys. I mean, it's a heck of a platform. The crew that I was with, they were just incredible. I mean, we worked together like a doggone sewing machine, man. They were spot on. The AC, the aircraft commander, Swede. It just great guys. And we worked well together. And like I said, we had done, 7 or 8 missions pre D-Day, the official D-Day for the attack into Afghanistan. And we were all excited. Yeah, we'd go in country and we'd just shoot them up, We'd find armor or tanks or vehicles or whatever, and it got destroyed. And then we'd come home, or it's 3.5 hour ride one way to work.
Wow.
Every day. And we had to be feet wet, so we had to be over the ocean at BMNT. So that's beginning morning nautical twilight. So that's just barely getting daylight. So we had to be feet wet over the ocean. So we'd get up there and operate for 6 hours, or when we ran out of ammo.
Sure.
Then we'd come home. But so we had the 3 gunships over Gecko, 2 over Rhino, and then the flight took off from the aircraft carrier and flew just over 1,000 miles.
Oh, wow.
1,000 miles. And about, 9-hour flight. Yeah. But I recce'd the route, going up, just to make sure there weren't any anti-aircraft or anything along the route until they got within, probably 5-6 miles of the target, because now they're in the built-up area. There are houses and
sure, all
kind of stuff around it, and so they infilled, landed, hit the target. We had 1 Chinook as he was coming in to land, and the environment over there, oh my gosh, man. The dirt is like talcum powder. It's just like powder. So in a helicopter, of course, you have the downwash.
Oh, yeah.
And stirs all that stuff up, and then we get into what's called a brownout condition. And it's almost like landing with a bag over your head. Oh, man. Yeah, but again, these are the best pilots in the world, man. But I think it was Chalk 4. I'm trying to recall. Anyway, as he was coming in to land, one of the rotor, there's a big wall around there. This is a big, big compound, man. Well, he hit the wall with the rotor system. Yeah, with the rotor system. And when he landed, he hit really, really hard. And it tore the ramp up. So he calls go around, and we're watching it the whole time. We're overhead now. We got troops on the ground. So now we're waiting for calls for fire. So once the aircraft get, at a certain distance, then we cut off all fires. And then we were waiting to respond to Leon, who was on the ground, to call for fires. So he did a go around. He came back around and he hovered. And I think it tore one of the landing gear off too. I don't recall, but it wasn't catastrophic, but they couldn't get the ramp lowered. So the Delta guys, they had to take their rucks off and crawl. There was just a very small opening in the back of the helicopter, and it was really rough terrain. It was rocks and bricks and concrete, just junk. And so they had to crawl out. One of the sergeant major, he would throw the rucksacks out. Dude would go, he'd throw a ruck. Go. But they all got out, and then that Chinook took off and went to an area to hold a safe area with the other Chinook. And then the spare Chinook took his place. So when they exfilled, or when they were done on target, then they could get those guys on and fly them back they went to Rhino, gassed up, and then went back to the ship after the mission. So yeah, it was, man, we made history.
Well, that was the kickoff to the invasion, huh?
Yeah, that was the official invasion. We operated some, prior to that, but that was the big operation. Rangers secured Rhino, and they got a combat jump. There wasn't a whole lot of, weren't many gunfights, few at both targets. And yeah, it was pretty cool because Delta, they took American flags, NYPD hats.
Oh, that's awesome.
And FDNY, so New York Fire Department hats, and left them all over those buildings.
Man, that's cool.
Just to say, hey, we were here. We're going to come get you. So, yeah, that was pretty neat that they did that. And, so cleared the target. Weren't on the ground that long. Everybody loaded up, and we flew back to Masura, and they flew back to the aircraft carrier and waited for follow-on missions. Yeah. Wow.
So with all of that and it being the first real go into combat, were there, ARs at the end, were they pretty rough, or was everything real smooth?
Oh, no.
You got to tell me.
Man, our debriefs, and we tell everybody, leave your feelings at the door, and put your kit on, put your armor on, because you're going to get arrows shot at you. You're going to get bullets shot at you. Not really, but yeah, they're very, very brutal. And at that level, we have little room for error and mistakes. And of course, some of them are self-repairing, And every mission, everything we do, we debrief. And, I always told people, I don't care what I did good. I want to know what I did bad so I can fix it.
Sure.
So, yeah, it was probably, 2-hour debrief. But, it starts from the time we started planning till everybody got home safe. And we completed that. We did it the next day, actually. We got home.
Did you sleep that night?
No. No, I hadn't slept in 3 or 4 days, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it was adrenaline, it was the excitement, and just the plan. I just kept planning and planning and planning. Or what if, Leon and I, we'd sit down for a couple hours and just, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if an aircraft gets shot down? What if an aircraft gets shot up and has to land? One of our contingencies that Leon and I came up with that we would, and there were roads everywhere, we would land the AC-130 and get that crew and put them on that gunship.
Wow.
That's how, we think outside the box. That's kind of what we get paid to do too. And guys would always say that, well, I get paid to think outside the box, and I was like, yeah, roger that. So we just came up with, all kinds of contingencies.
So you were building the plane in flight.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. It was cool. I was very honored to be a part of it.
So how disappointed were you that they made you the FSO on the first mission?
For about 5 seconds, I was like, yep, roger that, sir. Yeah, especially. And of course, the B company guys, bless their hearts, man. And I never will forget this. Jim Hosey, he was one of the AH pilots. He's like, Cope, you watch. You're going to be in the middle of everything. Because I was kind of bitching to them, I was like, man, I want to do my job. I want to do an AH. I want to go fly my AH. And then I got back, that morning, walk in the tent, and they're all like, told you.
Wow.
Told you, man. Of course, they were all sitting there in their, in their brown T-shirts, having coffee, and
wanted to hear the story from you.
Yeah. Oh, they'd all been in the talk and listening to radios, and there were other assets overhead that were filming it, and yes,
made history.
Yeah, we made history. We did. Yeah, and then we continued operations. We had the 22nd SAS was there too. And they went into country pretty early. I never will forget the commander's brief. It was very simple and very basic. He said, sir, he was briefing General Daly, said, we're going to infill, we're going to drive around, pick a fight. If we can't find anyone to fight, we're going to retrograde, and we're going to let them come to us. Then we're going to fight. I was like, any questions? No, that's pretty clear.
Damn.
Yeah. I love those guys, man. They're great professional soldiers, man. They're good.
Well, and, thinking back, this is, the beginning of the wars. All the countries are coming together. Everyone's fully supporting each other on this.
Yes.
And that was awesome to see, wasn't it?
Oh, man. It really was. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, in those early days. And then we kind of I had several buddies that were in 5th group, the SIF team. And so we were kind of keeping tabs on their progression and, seeing what they were doing. They were very successful. And the horse soldiers.
That's right.
That was cool, man. They rode horses into battle. And, we adapt. And they needed horses, so that's what they did. And they were very successful. Yeah, I was real proud of those guys. They did. Yeah, and then they were operating, all over the country. And we pretty much had the southern part, the desert. That's where, bin Laden had thought to have been living and staying and operating and running around there just west of Kandahar.
What are you guys hearing about bin Laden at this time?
Not
Any
much.
health issues or anything that you?
Yeah, he was a very sick man. He had to have dialysis every day. So he was pretty sick. And I never will forget this. My first combat mission was with Jamie Weeks. And we fly in on a MC-130 Talon II, land, get out, build up, we take off. Well, we had an asset that was kind of watching over our routes, and they call up and they're like, hey, we got something at our very first checkpoint, which was about 5 miles north of where the 130 landed.
Okay.
And we're like, what the heck, you know? And we're in dash 2, and lead calls up. It's like, hey, you guys see anything? And I could just, man, it was the darkest place I've ever seen in my life.
Zero lumen.
There was no moon, no cultural lighting, so there were no towns or anything that put off light but the stars that night. But, oh my goodness, it was dark. You know, you kind of lean forward thinking, oh, you know, this will help me see better,
Sure.
but it doesn't. And, you know, we have the best technology with night vision, and thank goodness. And so we start to see something. We're probably, I don't know, about 3 miles out, and we get a little closer. I mean, they were on the place on the ground that we had picked for our checkpoint. It was like a little road, dirt intersection, you know, out in the middle of the desert. And then you know, we see 2 trucks. Oh no, there's 3 trucks. And then there's an artillery piece, and it's pointing south. And we're like, what in the world? So lead, he's like, hey, you guys cover. I'm gonna fly in low, you know. And of course we're calling and say, hey, do we have any assets out here? Nope. They aren't ours. And it was what is it, D60, I think, artillery piece. But yeah, what blew me away, it was pointed right at, of course, the 130 left, and then our guys set up a FARP, so they had bullets and gas and rockets, and then we had Rangers that secured that FARP and protected it. So 130 takes off. So we get a little closer. Now we're about a mile out. Now we're about 600 meters, you know, and you're just starting to make stuff out. Yeah, there were 3 vehicles, 3 trucks. One was like a deuce and a half. But yeah, they were setting up an artillery piece, and lead goes in low. Well, they, you know, me and Jamie, you know, we're ready. He's flying. I got my M4 up, and we start seeing gunfire, man. We're like, oh yeah, here we go. Man, lead breaks, and me and Jamie roll in there, man, and he smokes him, dude. I mean, we put it on him. And then lead came back around. He put a rocket in the big truck, and man, the secondaries, it had to have been full of, you know, artillery.
Yeah.
And golly, dude, it was exciting. It was cool. But yeah, and then we flew, I think it's Highway 1 that runs east-west out of Kandahar. And then we went into Kandahar and just shot targets of opportunity. Yes, sir. If anything was moving, it got shot.
Wow.
That was the rules of engagement. There were no rules.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, I mean, I asked the JAG officer or attorney for the military. I said, hey, sir, what's ROE? He goes, well, sir, this hadn't happened since World War II. There is no ROE.
Oh, wow.
You engage everything.
Everything.
Yes, sir. If it's moving, and they had put out to the Afghanis, hey, if you're on the road after 6 p.m.,
that's your
between
trophy.
6 p.m. and 6 a.m., you get shot.
Yeah.
So that was just war.
Yeah, war's an ugly thing.
It is. It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah, we got in, and yeah, we engaged. And in B company, whoever's not flying, well, the other pilot, you've got your M4 up. So we can engage targets, we can suppress targets, and we're pretty darn good shots with that rifle out of that helicopter. We practiced and trained to that standard, so yeah, that's how we. And then a pilot, we'd switch after 20 minutes. We'd start the clock, because man, you're wrung out. I mean, you just are. So that we kind of came up with that on the fly, and so yeah, both guys took turns, and the other guys on the map or listening to the radio and send sit reps or any type. You know, if we engage, then we'd call it back. Say we engage, 6 personnel or a truck or whatever the case. So BDA, battle damage assessment.
So there's never really a lull when you're in a little bird.
No.
You're constantly working.
You're always working, man.
Wow.
Always working. Yeah. 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 We did that mission, and Yeah, I came back, got another load, went back out. And then, yeah, I came back to 130. 130 landed. I never will forget, heard on the radio on our internal, one of the crew chiefs called. Well, this Ranger, bless his heart, he reported a massive attack. A massive attack. So there's artillery coming in and gun. Well, what he saw were a bunch of shooting stars going across the sky, man. You know, we're all amped up, man. Adrenaline's going. We want to do a good job, and yeah, and we all kind of laughed about it. They finally figured out that it was big. It was a meteor shower.
Oh wow!
But it was coming, you know, right at them, and our guys were like, "Yeah, man, it looked like incoming. It did." And I'm like, "How in the world could they find us right in the middle of nowhere, man?" But yeah, guys are amped up. Yeah.
So, from the start of that mission, that first mission with at Gecko, how long does that op tempo keep up, and what's your nightly routines looking like?
Well, the op tempo increased, and you know, we started putting ground force in country, and then supporting them, you know, the best that we could. And yeah, the AHs. I got on one mission where we went and picked up Karzai, President Karzai. He was up in the mountains and had contacted through one of the CIA guys that he wanted to come out. So we took the gunship and covered the Chinooks. They went up in the mountains and picked up Karzai, brought him out, and he stayed for, I don't know, a few days, and then we took him back. So that was all pay grades way higher than us,
Oh,
you know. We got the mission, we execute the mission. Another night, we went and kind of rescued some missionaries out east of, I don't know, probably 60, 70 miles east of Kandahar up in the mountains. Yeah, they had gotten caught up and everything, so we went and picked them up. They were happy to see us. They're all Americans. Yeah, they were missionaries or NGOs. Yeah, did that. Went out on a P-3. That's a Navy airplane. Did some missions. I did three missions with them. Shot some tanks. They were pretty excited. Yeah. AH missions went on, and we completed our mission by end of December. Our mission statement was find, fix, destroy Al-Qaeda and Taliban. That was it. Well, we did it. We destroyed them, and they either left and went to Pakistan or, you know, wherever.
Philippines.
Yeah. The Americans, the Brits, the Aussies, we were there, and we came there to fight, and we were all pretty angry about them. You know, we lost 3,000 Americans on 9/11.
Yeah.
And we were pretty pissed off. We wanted to go get some, and we did. But thinking back, we did in, I guess, 3.5 months what the Russians couldn't do in 8 years. I mean, really.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, 300 operators? Maybe a little more. I don't know how many exactly, but we did that. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really is. You look back, think about it. Yeah.
So that was you had one trip to Afghanistan, and that was it, right?
Yeah, General Day came in and briefed us, said, all right, boys, we're going home. We're going to get ready to invade another country. And they're like, Roger that.
Well, to date, you were the only ones that were TFOR trained for invading a country, right? So, yeah, you're the ones to call.
Yeah, so we came home, and then probably spent about, I don't know, a week or two back home, planned. Everybody was back by now. And, so we were getting ready for the invasion of Iraq. Sure did. We spent the next 6 months out in southwestern United States, out in the desert, mountains, and yeah, train. Train never stops.
So now that you guys I assume you developed a lot of new TTPs now that you just successfully invaded a country.
Yeah.
And so now you're coming back. Are you reworking? Is everything completely different now as you're doing your workups?
No, not so much.
So you guys were already working on all the right things. You were just needed to make minor corrections.
Yes. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until, probably late 03, man, we got to do this way. What we do didn't work. So yeah, and it was so fluid to watch. And, of course, technology changes and all those things have, a big part in the first, 3 years, and 03 to 06. And then the insurgency started in October of 03. So, Al Qaeda, they started jihad, and they're like, hey, all the Americans are here, so let's go to Iraq and fight them. So, yeah, that started end of October. And, yeah, man, it was the wild, wild west, dude. It was crazy. But, yeah, we all did our jobs, and we did good things. Of course, we, did what we did in Iraq and defeated them. I think it was in April when President Bush called it, hey, that's it. But then the insurgency started. So now we have another battlefront with Al Qaeda and those terrorists. And yeah, so you change with the times. The enemy changes. The enemy gets smart. You got to respect the enemy. Yeah. So we would, we'd change too and come up with different ideas on missions, and, technology something new would come up. Well, hey, let's go try this. Pardon me. So yeah, it was busy. Yeah, it was busy. We did 90 to 100 day rotations. So they had, and that was another thing for us in Special Forces. We weren't formed to do long-term sustained operations.
That's right.
We go hit the target, come home.
That's right.
And now the leadership, they had to figure out, okay, well, how are we gonna support this logistically? How are we gonna support these humans? Doggone, man. I mean, in the winter time, so we had a longer pod or period of darkness. In summertime, darkness is shorter because summertime days are long, wintertime days are short. But wintertime, man, we go hit five, six targets every night.
Wow.
Every night. In summertime, about 3, because we just run out of darkness. Sure. And we don't like flying around in the daytime. Yeah, we're night stalkers, not day stalkers.
Yeah, bad things tend to happen.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah, 03, 04. So then we got on our rotations, and it was generally about 195 to 100 days. Then you rotate back home. The next group goes. And, yeah, so we did that for the next 6 years. Yeah.
How's your mental health at this time? You're just there. Yeah, you're just rocking it back and forth, and you're switched on all the time.
All the time, man. You're focused. Yeah, a lot of us are like, I don't want to go home. I want to stay here.
You're loving what you're doing.
But you're worn out. You fly, 8, 9, 10 hours every night, every day. You're smoked at the end of 3 months. Yeah. And so are the guys. They're out hitting targets every night, and we're right there with them. So it was a good rotation. How they managed that, I thought. And any longer than that, dude, we'd have been ineffective on the battlefield, because you're just, you suffer from chronic fatigue, chronic stress, all those things that tear down your mind, your body, physically, mentally. You got to go get a break. Absolutely.
Hey, real quick, while we take a break, if you don't mind, do us a favor, like and subscribe. If you think somebody else would enjoy this, go ahead and push it out to them. Let us know if we're doing a good job. Leave us a comment. So, one tour in Afghanistan, back to Iraq. How many total trips did you do to Iraq?
10.
You did 10 deployments to Iraq.
Yeah, 11 total.
And were they all they were all the 109, less than 100 day, 90?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, except for one I did when I got shot down and I got hurt really bad, so I was grounded. And B Squadron, their FSNCO, Leon, he had just left and asked me to come and do fires and then the air part for him. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, man, I want to get back in a fight.
Right.
You know? So I deployed with them on October of 04 and then stayed until they changed out with the next squadron in January. And then I also was helping the 22nd SAS. They're in the house next door, and they had, we were doing hits simultaneously, kind of working together. And they asked me if I could stay and help them, so I stayed a couple extra months and worked for the 22nd SAS, and that was really cool. Just great guys, great operators, and I would tell them, hey, Delta's still the best. Like, no, not mate, you wanker.
Oh man!
Like, oh, come on, you guys, they were a hoot.
How was the competition between them? I mean, you guys had to have friendly competitions all the time, right?
There wasn't. I mean, they're both great operators, great units, and they're the same.
So beer shoots at the end all the time.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing. The Brits, every night at the debrief, the sergeant major would have coolers at the back of the room, and everybody got 2 Guinness. Yeah, they were pretty funny, but yeah, Ryan, thanks so much for asking me to come down. I'm really honored that you asked me, and it's good to be back at Hurlburt again. We spent a lot of time down here when I was in B Company working, with the AFSOC guys, the MC-130 Talons, the gunships, and we'd come down here to live fire, and then we could do overwater training. So, yeah, I got kind of a funny story. So we were down here one time. We went out. There was a flight of 4 AHs. We went out to go recon something. I think maybe a FARP or something. But so we were coming back into Hurlburt, and the runway runs right to the edge of the ocean. Right to the edge of the Gulf of America. America. And so I think I was in Chalk 2, and we fly over, and we're flying pretty low, but we fly over this big house, and there's a swimming pool, and there's 8 or 9 ladies in bikinis laying around this swimming pool, and we were like, go around. So we did a big turn, and we did a very, very low, slow pass over this swimming pool. We're waving, and they're waving, and so we land. Well, we get a phone call. It's the commanding general.
Oh, no.
That was his house and his daughters. And we're like, oh, we're in trouble now. So we went to his office, and he was like, you boys flying off low over my house. We're like, sir, we didn't know it was your house, And, oh, yeah, we were coming in for an approach to land, 3-6. And he's like, whatever. It's like, get out of my office. Don't do that again. We're like, roger that, sir. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we kind of got, slapped on the hand. But it was all good.
So you guys definitely knew how to work hard and play hard, it sounds like.
We do.
And that's definitely a necessary thing, right?
It is.
Mean, for your mental health, you got to be able to blow off some steam.
You do. You have to. Yeah, so I did those tours, and in Iraq, I had one of my days were very exciting. And, but before that, in 03, so the Rangers got a mission, 375, got a mission to take and hold Haditha Dam. So, I hear dam. Okay, yeah, I've seen dams, I'm thinking dam at the lake or dam here, there. This dam, I believe, is the third largest dam in the world. It was almost 5 miles across Haditha Dam. That's how big this thing is. And it was like 350 foot tall. It was an hydroelectric, so wires everywhere, like Korea. All the and it powered all the way down the Euphrates to Baghdad. That is what provided power for Baghdad. And it was the most strategic point in the country of Iraq at that time. Well, we thought Saddam had ordered his guys to come blow it up. And the Iraqis thought that we were going to go blow it up.
Oh, man.
And all I'm going to take it as a phone call is like, hey, we want to protect the dam, So the Rangers got the mission. My team, we were named Team Jackass. Yeah, we were. And so we got the mission. And Rangers, they did an airfield seizure. It was a H-1. It was an old oil pumping site, and they had an airfield there. And they jumped in, did another combat jump, seized the airfield. So once it was secure, we flew in on a C-17 and landed, pushed all built up, went in, got a quick brief. The Rangers had already departed by ground to the dam. And for us, it was about a 17-minute flight. So, and then on some of their trucks, we had asked them to put us in a clandestine FARP. So it was like 4 loads. We had 2 AHs, some gas rockets. We had a GWOT 19, so we needed 50 cal. And then we needed minigun ammo. So they picked a spot. It was just north and west of the dam, like a 3-minute flight. And we were like, okay, cool. Yeah, this'll provide us gas and ammo all night if we need it.
Sure.
So Rangers get to the dam and secure it. And then here comes the wave. So, and it was cloudy, overcast, low ceilings. So they couldn't get any Air Force fixed wing in there to provide cover for them or drop bombs or, whatever, because they couldn't see. So the 2 AHs, that was it. We were their fire support.
Oh, wow.
So get on the radio, and Mo, he was the fire support NCO, the senior sergeant, fire support sergeant for 375. He was in the western blocking position on the dam. And he's calling for us, hey, where are the AHs? Where are the AHs? And every time he got on the radio, the gunfire intensified. And I think there were like 5 Rangers in that. There was a west blocking position, then an east blocking position. And keep in mind, they're almost 5 miles apart. It's not like, hey, I can run over there very quick. So what they kind of missed was there was a division of Republican guards at the town of Haditha. They had a big base there. So there was a division of Republican guards, and then I think a battalion or maybe a battalion and a half of Fedayeen. So the Fedayeen were like our Green Berets, kind of comparing.
Okay.
But the Republican Guards, they were disciplined, regular Army, soldiers. So Rangers get on the dam. Well, they start to attack. Okay. And I can hear, so we take off, and I'm listening to the radio, and I'm trying to call him to let him know that we were en route. And again, every time he would talk, the gunfire would intensify. The machine gun fire would intensify. I could hear guys screaming over the gunfire. And I could hear, we worked with each other for years and years and years. We trained together. When we train, we live fire. There's guys running around on the ground, So, a guy's voice. You can put a face to it, And I could hear Mo's voice start to go up in octaves. So I started to get scared. And so we're hauling butt, man. I mean, we're going as fast as that little bird will take us. And I'm calling. I'm getting so frustrated. And so I come up on SATCOM, the satellite radio. And we're probably, 4 minutes out. And now he's screaming over the gunfire. And you can hear the incoming gunfire.
Oh, man.
And there's a giant lake just north of the dam. So we come in, we drop right on top of the water. And we've got an MH6 with us. So we changed our tactics. And it went back to the Vietnam times. So it was called a pink team. So you had 2 Cobras, you had 2 gunships, and then a Loach, a little bird. They flew them in Vietnam. And so that Loach was there. So we took our MH6, my good friend Tony Ely. He was one of the pilots. But we took them and they could carry a FLIR ball. And we couldn't. So they could use that FLIR, to look out ahead, see if there's any hot spots. Just give us a heads up. If they saw a target, then they would break off, and then our 2 guns would run in and engage the target. Also, if an aircraft went down, so they could pick us up, and take us back to H1, whatever the case. But at the dam, they were our rear guard. So while we were working on the dam and south of the dam, then they would fly a racetrack pattern, and just keep their eyes open so nobody could come up behind us. And, man, we're about 60 seconds out, and I look at the guy I was flying with, and I was angry at this point. And I go, a fucking astronaut standing on the moon can talk to Houston, Texas in 1968, and I can't talk to my fires guy 2 miles away, So I call Mo on SATCOM. I said, hey, varmint, we're a minute out. And he goes, varmint, this will probably be over in a minute.
Oh, wow.
Dude, it was a bad feeling, man. The hair stood up on both of us. And so we come hauling ass in, we bump. So in the AH, we try to stay as low to the terrain to help mask us, okay? And then when we get probably 700 to 800 meters from the target, we'll do a cyclic climb, and it's called a bump. So we'll bump up in the air. What that does, we'll bump up to 200 or 300 feet AGL above the ground. Well, that gives us a good view of the battlefield. We can find friendlies, we can find the guys, and then positively identify the bad guys. Then we'll push over and then put our pipper on the target and engage with mini or rocket, whatever's required. So we bump. As we start our bump, I'm looking out, and the best way I can explain it is imagine a Rolling Stones concert in London, England, and the lights come on, and all the flashes, thousands and thousands of phone flashes or camera flashes. That's what it looked like. And tracers everywhere. And I never will forget this. Me and the other guy, we looked at each other and we started laughing and we go, we are fucked.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding.
How many fighters are there?
Probably, I'd say in that first wave, 1,500 to 2,000.
And how many Rangers on the ground?
136. And my two AHs.
Birds.
And the MH. It was the Alamo.
Oh.
It was the Alamo. Some reports said there were between 3,000 and 4,000 on the first wave. I don't know, dude. We bump up. The other guy's flying. I've got my M4. Push over. We identify Mo and those guys. And there was probably about a company-size element attacking his position. So 100 dudes at least. Well, we engaged them 12 meters in front of friendlies with minigun. 12 meters.
That's closer than the field goal, an extra point.
Oh, yeah. Way closer. 12 meters, dude.
Bro.
Yeah. So we engage and break. -2 engages. We break and probably killed 50 or 60 in that first engagement. Come back around and we shot the rest of them. Then boom, radio comes up. So the FO, forward observer, fires guy, had to been a private. Bless his heart. Varmint, this is Romeo 2-1, fire mission over. But we train these guys, and they're the Rangers, and they're trained and call for fire from the time they come to that battalion till they leave. And a standard call for fire. Hey, you, this is me, from my position, 360 degrees, 200 meters, marked by laser or whatever, marked by tracer. Well, he just started his standard call for fire, and they were being attacked by another company-size element. So we zip over there, and we're about 10 seconds out, and I call him. I said, hey, Romeo, this is Varmint. I have your position. Just mark the target.
Just that calm.
But that calms him, and it calms. It's just, guys
down.
all the time told us, they're like, dude, you guys are you're cool, calm, collective, and that helps me. I'm like, okay, the AHs are here.
Yeah.
And my old friend Bob Horrigan, so we had like 8 or 10 Delta guys came to the dam too. They were heavy breachers because they figured they'd have to do breaching, throughout the dam and gather intel or whatever the case. And then they had some snipers with them. And Bob Horrigan was a sniper, but he told me later, he got on his radio and he says, hey, you guys got to come up here. The AHs are here.
Everyone just stop what you're doing and come watch.
Yeah, come watch this. But, oh my goodness, man, I'd never seen anything like it before in my life. And so we go to that East BP. We engage those troops. And all night long, we shot and we shot and we shot. We shot 11 loads out of my aircraft. I don't know what Dash 2 probably shot 11 or 12.
And what's the load?
So 2,000 rounds per minigun, so 4,000 rounds of minigun, and there's 14 rockets. So do the math. We went to the FARP, our clandestine FARP. We exhausted it in the first 40 minutes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So we'd shoot, we'd go Winchester, we'd haul ass to the FARP, the pilot, we both jump out, we load the rockets, we load the guns, we jump back in and take off.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's probably 40 minutes to an hour. So that's 5 loads down. And so now, I called H1. I said, hey, are there any aircraft that could bring us some ammo? Because, dude, it was just, now I'm talking 3,000 to 4,000 enemy.
Well, where's your QRF? So no one can fly and there's no QRF.
No.
So it really is the Alamo.
It is. It is, man. And long story short, I wrote a book called Death Waits in the Dark. And it's the biggest chapter in my book about the Battle of Haditha Dam. And when we got briefed, it was an 18-hour mission.
Of course.
But there was whatever. Military intelligence, that's an oxymoron, I think.
Yes.
No, you guys are great, thank you. But so there was an armor unit that were coming. They were going to relieve us that next day. And we were on the dam for 7 days. Gosh, man. We were like, oh my goodness. So then we had to fly all the way back to H1 to get to the FARP, to our FARP. Get gas, get ammo, and then haul ass. It was about a 17-minute flight one way. And yeah, it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen in my life, ever will see. Talked to Tony Ely about it, from his view in the MH, back there behind us and watching. Yeah, it was unbelievable. They said the first night that the AHs killed and wounded probably 12 to 1,500 enemy.
Oh, wow.
Yep. First night.
Jeez.
And the first 3 nights, we were there all night in a gunfight because they just kept attacking. On day 2, they dropped 500 rounds of 155 on that dam at the Rangers. 500 artillery rounds of 155. We didn't lose. We had 3 Rangers wounded, and that was it.
I was going to ask.
No, we didn't lose anybody. And so, yeah, the battle went on. We'd go Winchester. We'd haul ass back to the FARP at H1, rearm, refuel, which took about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Our guys are the best in the world, man.
How much fuel are you putting in? We know the rounds.
We're filling up, We got a couple hours of gas. But we'd run out of ammo before we'd run out of gas. And, of course, we had our M4s, and we had hand grenades. So we came up with a little TTP in Afghanistan. We would drop hand grenades on the bad guys. We'd fly over, drop a hand grenade on them. It was very effective.
Very effective.
And the ground guys loved it. They would get so tickled at us. So anyway, the battle, if you want to know more, read the book. And but yeah, that's the biggest chapter in the book. I saw so many acts of heroism that week on that dam, just Rangers being Rangers. And yeah, it was just crazy, man. It was crazy. So yeah, we did that. Simultaneously, they rescued Jessica Lynch. Yeah, that mission was going on. So we heard that on the radio, and yeah, we're like, yeah, man, we got her. She was an Army soldier that had been captured. They'd killed her whole unit. They were in trucks, got lost.
They were on a convoy, right?
Yeah, they were in
resupply,
convoy.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we got her, and then we recovered the other Americans. So that was a good thing. So yeah, that was Reader's Digest version of the Dam. And then 04, I had another exciting day. I just had many, many exciting days, brother. God put me in all these places. I dang sure didn't volunteer. First thing my dad taught me when I was going to join, don't ever volunteer for anything. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so, yeah, we were operating in Fallujah. This was March of 04. And again, it was the wild, wild west. I mean, we were hitting 5-6 targets every night, hunting bad guys, deck of cards. And we hit a target, our last target that night. We got intel off of it that there was another leader from Al-Qaeda that was going to meet at this house in Fallujah at 10 that morning. So we said, okay, Sergeant Major says, hey, AHs, we had a little landing area just east of Fallujah there. And so, yeah, we landed and just kind of hung out. And then they took off. They said, hey, you guys crank up, get on the radio. If we need you, we'll call you.
Okay.
Yep, roger that. But it's daytime. We were just like, oh, dude, okay. So they hit the target. They got the guy we were looking for. And then from him, we got some more information. There was another high-ranking AQ down in Amaria. It's about, 17, 18 miles south of Fallujah. So they come back. They're like, hey, it's B Squadron Recce And they said, hey, we're going to drive down there, kill the guy, and then we're coming back to BIOP, so Baghdad International Airport. We were on the west side of the airfield and living in that hangar. So he said, I want you guys go home and get some sleep. And we're like, oh, roger that. So we go back, fly back. They go down there, and guy comes running out of the talk and said, hey, the recce guys are in a tech, troops in contact. Yep. They got an ambush. We're like, crap. So we run to the AHs, jump in, 10-minute flight. We get on station. We start to recce. We see some dudes. We shoot them up. And then there's another group that are trying to flank to the northeast and engage them. And then troop commander calls. And now they have 2 Panders. So that's a big 6-wheeled armored vehicle. And then they had 3 up-armored Humvees, gun trucks. So in the gun trucks, the Rangers manned the guns. So they had one truck, had dual 240s, then the other 2 trucks had 50 cals up. So they're lined up on the road, and troop commander calls, says, hey, we're going to exfil. We got the guy. We're done. Roger that. I mean, man, from the time I jumped in that helicopter, just the hair just stood up. I said a prayer. I said, God, give me speed and accuracy. That's all I asked for. That's all I asked for on every mission. God, give me speed and accuracy. I told the guy that's flying, my co-pilot, I said, get your M4 and you shoot anything that looks dangerous. And this was his first combat tour, his brand new guy. And so I come around, and I'm not going to get too deep in this. Again, it's in my book. I don't want to ruin it for somebody. So I do a low pass over him. We wave, and I'm in a climbing right-hand turn, and an SA-16 hits me right in the ass. So an SA-16, very advanced Russian system, shoulder fired, but it's a heat seeker. So they use them for jets, for helicopters. And that missile seeks the heat of the engine. And it works as advertised. So I'm in this climbing right-hand turn, huge explosion. I see this big white fireball go right by my head. I get fragged in the right side of the face and my neck. My co-pilot said he saw like a 1.5 meter long hot streak go right by my head.
Oh, wow.
And entered an auto rotation. I landed. The other aircraft, those guys said it was the prettiest auto rotation they'd ever seen. I said, well, it's kind of like Neil Armstrong. I had to do it once, and that was it. Landed on the moon when he landed on the moon. So we land, we slide about 35 meters. The skids stick in the soft dirt. We roll end over end 3 times, come to rest inverted. Aircraft's on fire. Ammo's cooking off. Gunfight starts. 2 of the Delta guys saw the missile shot, so they immediately started to suppress. It was a 2-story building just on the west side of this bill. And we get out. I drag my co-pilot out because the helicopter's fully engulfed in fire. And we get on a knee. We're looking to the east. And I tell him, I says, hey, I hear a truck. Truck stops. We're in a bit of a low ground in a defilade there because my priority is protection of us. And so I tell him, hey, get your rifle up. We'll talk about it. We're pretty fucked up right now. And yeah, before we pull the trigger, I said, you fire on me. Don't shoot unless I shoot.
Okay.
And he just kind of nodded, but he's got blood all over his face. So I'm like, did he get hit? Did he catch some shrapnel? And the little bird is known for the shoulder harness not locking in a crash sequence.
Oh.
And I actually know 2 guys, and your face hits the cyclic. bam. So it knocks all your teeth out.
Oh, man.
And I thought that's what had happened. Well, it hadn't. He bit through his tongue, like halfway through half of his tongue was cut. But that's another story. And so I see this bald cap, and I see a face, I see the beard, and I'm like, oh, that's Chaz. I know him.
Oh,
So he comes running, and he stops, and he looks at us, and he comes running up there to us. He grabs us, hugs us, and he goes, Coat, we thought you guys were dead.
Oh, man.
And I said, we ain't dead. And he goes, but he said later, he told me I asked for a fire extinguisher. I was going to put the fire out, but that helicopter, dude, it was, I've got a picture, maybe we can get it up later, but of the crash site. And he asked me, he says, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to go find that motherfucker and I want to kill him. He goes, get in the truck. So we attacked. We spent the next 6 hours in a gunfight. And theater dedicated, Air Force Special Operations, SOAR, Combat Search and Rescue, refused to come get us. They said it was too risky. Man, that really made me upset. It upset everybody. Anyway, so we stayed with the ground force and we fought our way in there, in that ville, out of that ville, through Fallujah, through Ramadi, to our mission support site, or MSS, up on the river north of Balad, or not Balad. No, there's Fallujah and what's the town to the east, or west of them? Ramadi. Dang, man, I've had too many head injuries. So through Ramadi, get to the MSS, we pull in the gate, and I open the door and just fell out. They had 2 of the doctors were there. Our Black Hawk was about 5 minutes out to come. They picked us up, and I immediately started throwing up. So I had a concussion.
Yeah.
I hit the door frame so hard it cracked my helmet.
Oh,
and
man.
So they got us, and we got back, went to Germany, and then went home. And that was another exciting day. another day at the office for a 6-gun.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That the injuries sustained on that crash, how bad were they?
Yeah, I have 47 pieces of titanium in me, and I've had 46 surgeries.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I broke vertebrae in my C-spine and my L-spine. Both knees got blown out, both shoulders. Of course, I had a severe TBI and my left ankle. Yeah. The good Lord was watching over us. Absolutely.
Yes, he was.
Absolutely. Yeah, so
what's
that's pretty much it for Iraq. And of course I did a tour with B Squadron and then 22nd SAS as fires and air guy, and then I got back up and I did, I don't know, four more tours flying AHs. Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
And I retired. Boss came to me one day, put his arm around me and said, Gregory, I said, oh, there's that name again. He said, you've been all you could be. It's time to go home. Roger that. Dropped my retirement papers the next day. But the docs they took good care of me, and both of us had set up a plan for surgeries, so I did a surgery, then went back for another 90 to 100 days, come home, get a surgery, back, surgery, back, surgery, back. Yeah.
So what was your condition overall, if you had to put a number on it percentage-wise when you were getting out, as far as your recovery?
So as far as retirement, I'd become a liability, and my the guys, my tribe, my team, they saw it. I was wrecked mentally. I had a meltdown, a breakdown, whatever you want to call it, in June of 2005 during my annual flight physical. We as warriors, we push it down, we push it down, we push it down. And I didn't talk to anybody. I was a hurting man. I was an angry man. I prayed a lot. But they got me good care. And yeah, I did the best I could do. And my teammates, they saw it. And yeah, so, God said, hey, Gregory, it's time to go home. So yeah, so I did. And tried to reintegrate back into society. Yeah, and that's, for all of us, it's hard. It's tough because we don't have that camaraderie. We don't have the adrenaline rush that we all seek. And yeah, so I went to work for Kyle Lamb, Viking Tactics. I was an instructor for him. I had my own little company, so I did firearms training and tactics. Also, I worked in the oil and gas industry as a safety, security, emergency response. Yeah, so I was just trying to find my place, trying to, figure out my family, figure out, okay, now what am I going to do? I was pretty successful, I have to say, and God watched over me, took care of me till August of 2015. My good friend, Master Sergeant Leon Hansen, took his life on June 26th, 2015. And it was I'm still angry at you, brother. But, man, that one kicked me in the balls. That March, my wife of 32 years ran off with a dude from high school. My kids didn't talk to me. And in August of 2015, I attempted to take my life. And I got my 1911 out, put a bullet in it. I was drunk. I'm an alcoholic, drug addict. Had probably less than half a bottle of whiskey left and walked down to the range with intentions of blowing my brains out. My cup was full. I had not lost hope. I am a Christian. And as I was sitting there, God spoke to me, the Holy Ghost. And the words that I heard were, "Not now, Gregory. Not now, Gregory."
Wow.
And I passed out. I woke up next morning, and I've been on a crusade ever since. Yeah, it's veteran suicide is running rampant in this country, and no one is helping us except for those nonprofits that have been formed that operate off of donations trying to help us. Okay? And it goes back to Vietnam. The last I read, there are 26 suicides per day of veterans, not 22 anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing
and
as
in
well.
the special operations community, it's out of control. So, yeah, I focused on myself, trying to get well, trying to get my head right. I went to some faith-based, 4-day retreats to help heal. There's a lot of us, we have wounds that you can't see.
That's right.
And now the media has put such a stigma on us. In the early days, everyone supported us. Guys could find a job. They, could take care of their families. And that's all we want, man. That's all we want. We want to be a good part of society, go to work, take care of our families, pay our taxes. Yeah, just live life. And that's not happening. So, and I studied this. I've talked to doctors, to psychologists, to psychiatrists, therapists. I've been in therapy since 2005. 20 years I've been in therapy. Now, how did I get to that point? In the early days, I didn't talk to anybody, one. Two, I didn't want to be branded with a C on my forehead, crazy. I wanted to keep my job. I wanted to keep taking it to the bad guys. I loved my job. I loved the guys. And I just kept pushing it down, Well, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to talk to somebody. It's okay. Call a brother and tell him you love him. I try to contact a vet every day, either text or I call them.
That's awesome.
And I tell them, hey, man, I love you. I'm just checking in. You might save a life that day. Yeah, but we just got to stay in the fight and not quit. You just can't quit. Now I've had several buddies that took their life. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw Leon. Nobody saw it coming for him. Another good friend of mine, Cap, took his life over a year ago. I had talked to him. It was last January, actually. I talked to him right after Thanksgiving. He had written a book, and he was a Ranger, and had a prosthetic. I think he was the first Ranger to go back into combat with a prosthetic leg.
Wow.
The guy that picked us up at the crash site, Chaz, he lost his leg in a gunfight. And I think he was the first soldier to go back into combat with a prosthetic leg. And, so it's just, man, it's just so emotional, and it's sad, the people that they leave behind. A good friend of mine in October took his life. He was an infantryman in the 101st. I talked to him often, just like Leon. We would talk 2 or 3 times a week. He would always call me on my birthday. I would always call him on his birthday. My birthday was June 22nd. And then I'd get a call the morning of the 26th from his son-in-law. And, man, my phone rang. I looked at the number. They were out in Washington State. He was in 275 Rangers.
Okay.
And
253 area code.
Yep. And I said, oh my God. And he said, Greg, Leon's gone. And I just broke down, man. I cried for days. And it's okay to cry, fellas.
That's
It
right.
is.
It is.
It's good. It's therapy. But we're men, we're warriors, and we think that that's not the way we should act. But it's okay. It is. It's okay. So, I kind of, got myself gathered up 2015 and got more help. There's meds now that, we can take to help us with our anger, to help us with that depression. And now they're testing and looking hard at psychedelics. So on that note, I had a really shitty year last year, man. I did. The thought even passed through my mind about starting my 45 again. But I know as a Christian, that was the devil. And he was over here, and the Holy Spirit was over here, and we kind of laughed, and he says, you throat punch that son of a bitch. And, and this all happened in just a few seconds, but I was down. And, one of my buddies, I talked to him, and people tell me that, I go, I do for others. And he says, well, Gravy, what do we do for the guy that's doing for others? I said, this right here, bro, just listen to me, just talk to me,
Yeah.
So I met my wife in 2017, and she's my rock. She's my compass. Yeah. Thank you, Edie. Thank you. Yeah, we had a rough journey. We have seasons
Sure.
that we live in. Well, good friend of mine, he had called. He says, hey, man, you're on my heart. What's going on? And I said, dude, I'm having a rough time, man. I'm having a really rough time. Hadn't been this bad since 2015. He's like, okay, what's going on? So I talked to him. And then another good friend of mine, he was a Ranger. Talked to him. Gravy, what's going on? I said, well, I was having a tough time, dude. Broke down, cried for a while, got myself gathered up. Well, unbeknownst to me, there's a program called VETS. Okay, it was started by a SEAL, and they're utilizing psychedelics to help veterans, and it's working. They've been very successful. So both these guys, and they hadn't talked, emailed this VETS and said, there's a Night Stalker in trouble. His name's Greg Coker. He needs your help now. And man, I'm going next Sunday to their program. And I'm going to go do some psychedelics. And I talked to a couple of guys. You're one of them.
That's right.
You went through the program, and it was life-changing.
It was life-changing.
It was life-changing. And I need some help. Okay? I prayed about this, and yeah, it has just happened so fast, and I'm so thankful. And I'm a blessed man. But yeah, so I'm excited about going, but I've got some anxiety about it. And yeah, I go out to San Diego, and then I have to go into Mexico where they perform this. It's not allowed in the States. But I think now I know Governor Perry is behind this. I watched a podcast with Joe Rogan that just took place a couple weeks ago. I watched Sean Ryan's podcast. He went through the VETS program, and he had his wife on with him. And she said, hey, the second he walked in the door, I could tell he was a changed man. So that's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful testament right there. So I feel that it's, and I've done a bunch of research. I like data. I'm a geek that way. But yeah, there's nothing but great things have been said about this program. So yeah, I'm going to go do it, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Brother, I'm super excited for you. It's, as I told you, we've talked about it over the last couple of days. It absolutely changed my life. The guys that were there with me changed their lives, and then moving forward from there, it's been about 6 months since I went, and I still stay in contact with those guys. I mean, it built a new brotherhood, man. Yeah. So it's awesome what those guys are doing.
I've attended a couple programs. Well, no, 4, I think, over the last since 2015. 2 of them were faith-based, and then the other 2 were through nonprofits. And my AAR debrief comments to them were they don't follow up with the vet. So they're like, okay, congratulations, you went through this, see you later. Okay. And that's where I see the disconnect with any of these programs, is that we have to continuously follow up with these guys and ladies. And yeah, so I'll kind of back up the stigma that has been put on veterans. And I hate the letters PTS. I don't know. So post-traumatic stress disorder. So anybody can get PTS.
That's right.
You can be in a car wreck. You could be abused as a child. You could be beaten up. There's different levels of PTS. You could be a gunshot victim. I had a friend of mine that was a gunshot victim, domestic violence. But there's short-term, long-term. And I've talked to senators, I've talked to congressmen, and again, I'm on a crusade to get this changed, okay? It needs to be PCS, post-combat stress. That's what we suffer from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Post-combat stress, okay? There's people out there a lot smarter than no gravy. But, you know, yeah, talk to people about this. Let's get this thing changed, man. It's going to take at least a generation or two, you know, to get this stigma off of us. And the media's done it. You know, I said earlier, you know, used to, you retired, you got out, whatever the case, went and got a job. People welcomed us.
That's right.
Open arms, man. Now, guys can't get a job. You know, they can't take care of their families.
Their liability is what they're considered because of what the media's pushed.
Yes. You know, here we go. You know, sadness leads to depression, leads to anger, and leads to all these emotions, and they lose hope, and they go boom. Okay. I was talking about Corey earlier. He took his life in October. I went to that funeral in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. It's sad. You know, it's terrible. There's more things that our country and our government can do for us. And they need to get up off their ass and do it.
They absolutely do. I agree with you.
I'm not going to go to any more funerals. I just can't take it. Edie and I went out there, and it just crushed both of us. We'd actually met this couple at one of the getaways. It was a 4-day
couples retreat.
Yeah, couples retreat, and 2 years ago. Yeah, the guy was a nurse. He was intelligent, good dude. Yeah, it's just sad, man. It just broke my heart. They don't think about all the things they're leaving behind.
Well,
their kids, their wives, their buddies. You know, doggone it. Go talk to somebody. Call me 24/7. I won't come pick you up at the bar because you're drunk. I might, but yeah, just reach out to somebody. Reach out to your pastor. Go talk to your wife or your dad or somebody. Get this stuff out, guys. Don't push it down. Don't hold it in. You got to go talk to somebody. Go get help. Go see a therapist. Go. You're no less a man than me or this man. But just go get help, man. We've been through a lot. We've seen shit that you just can't get rid of. And I'm getting better. I mean, I've been on meds, and like I said, I've been seeing therapists since 2004. The unit got me to a psychiatrist, Doc Franklin. He was our unit psych. You know, he saved my life, you know, with those seasons that we come into, the valleys that we get in. I was in a valley, you know, for several months. But you just have to fight your way through it. Don't give up. Don't quit. You know, the old Night Stalker motto, NSDQ, Night Stalkers don't quit. Yeah. So, doggone it. Just go talk to somebody.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right. There's programs out there. There's a lot of nonprofits out there that exist, and really, it's just I think a lot of the guys have a hard time getting connected to those.
Yeah,
and so I think the more of these we do, and the more modalities, if you will, that are out there that guys can get a hold of. I mean, I talked to a young lady last week that, you know, she was doing the Squarian, right, with some like horse therapy, and that seemed to really help her. Equine therapy. And, you know, not everything has to be a psychedelic retreat or anything like that, but there's a lot of things that are out there.
There are, and I talk about this. I'm going to talk a minute about my book.
Let's do it.
And so I wrote this book. It's called Death Waits in the Dark. And, man, I thought about it it took me 15 years to write it. And, you know, one, I don't want to be that guy. We are the quiet professionals, but we're not, what'd you say that?
Silent.
We're not silent professionals.
We don't have to be silent.
We don't have to be silent. And so old Kyle Lamb, he would always tell me, Gravy, if it ain't written, it never happened.
That's right.
I mean, look at the Bible.
That's right.
Just think,
right there.
If these, you know, Paul and Luke and Mark, if they hadn't written that, we wouldn't have it. So man, I struggled and I struggled and I struggled. And I was going through Albuquerque, New Mexico one time. This is in 2000. Stopped in to see my old friend George Hand, G.O. He was A Squadron, Delta guy, and just a beautiful writer. He was writing for some of these big internet deals, and just an amazing writer. He's funny too, highly intelligent. I think he speaks 6 languages, to include Mandarin Chinese.
Oh, wow. I think that's the hardest one,
He
right?
reads it, writes it.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm like, what don't you do, Gio? But anyway, yeah, we set up for like 20 hours talking about different stories, and he kind of tricked me. So he's like, Cope, he's like, just write the story about Haditha Dam. I said, okay. So I wrote that, and I wrote some more, and these get out there on the internet, and I had these editors and different folks at these internet places. They'd call me and they're like, Greg, we got 200,000 hits, man, on this story. Write a book.
Damn.
And I was like, man, I don't want to do this. And then I'd hear Kyle Lamb, Gravy, if it ain't written, it never happened. So Edie and I, my wife, we were sitting in the den one evening, and she looks at me. I was really toiling over it. She goes, here's how I want you to think about this. I said, okay. She said, this is your legacy, and I want to inspire everybody. Write your story. Write your story. Write a sentence a week, a paragraph a week, a month, whatever. Before you know it, you'll have a story, okay? She said, this is your legacy. I want you to write this for your children and your grandchildren. Boom. I could grasp that.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Next day, I started writing. The manuscript was finished in 89 days.
Wow.
That's what I did. I sat there every day, man, tight. Now, she'd come in and she'd say, you need to take a break. You need to walk away for a couple of days. It's cathartic, but it also kind of brought some demons.
Sure.
Up. Okay. Dang, I was going to say something else and I forgot already. So, I started a journal on 9/11. That day, that evening. And I wrote in that journal every day for the next 8 years. Now, if I wouldn't have had that journal to fall back on, I couldn't have remembered half this stuff.
Right.
But I had it and I could refer to it, and some of it's funny, some of it's heartbreaking, but it's just stories of my experiences. And it's not about me. I want to make that perfectly clear. It's about my tribe and the giants that I walked with for over 20 years.
And it reads like that. And I was going to ask you, have they come back to you, a lot of the guys that you were writing about? They come back and talk to you about it, and are they fired up? I mean, because it tells some cool stories about a lot of dudes.
Yeah. And I, one thing was, TTPs. I didn't want to, unveil anything, and we triple checked. There were 3 of us. Everything that was written, we checked it. We checked for open source. And if it was on the fence, I took it out. So, and I finished the manuscript. I sent it to the 160th, and I sent it to Delta. And I said, hey, I'm going to write a book. If there's anything in here that, you don't agree with or whatever, you call me. I never got a phone call. And then I sent it out to, 6 or 7 general officers, sergeants major. I sent it to Doc Franklin. But Kyle Lamb, I sent it to him, and he called and he said, Gravy, this is going to save guys' lives.
Absolutely.
It's going to save guys' lives. So, moving forward, so I did that. We printed it. So we sold over 10,000 copies so far. And I got approached by some publishers, writers, friends. and they said, "Hey, Greg, you've got a whole nother audience out there. You need to fix this." I said, "I agree." We got excited. We got in a hurry and printed it. And, I talk in first person, second person, third person, acronyms that, unless you're in the military or a police officer. And so I had several hundred requests. They wanted a hardback. So last year I sent the manuscript to a professional editing company, paid them a whole shit ton of money, and they spent 11 months editing the book. So now the second edition is out, and we're really excited about it. They did an amazing job rewriting it. It flows, it's fresh, and yeah, I'm really pumped up about it. We decided after I finished writing the book that I was going to donate every penny of the proceeds. Okay?
That's awesome.
So I called and interviewed probably 3 or 4 publishing companies, and I found this out. That a publishing company, when you hire a publisher, they keep 70 to 80% of those proceeds. They do. It's a fact. Well, that wasn't in my plan because I wanted to donate to 501c3 nonprofits that support vets, first responders, and their families.
Right.
That was Greg's plan. So to date, we've donated over $100,000.
Wow.
It is so cool to nonprofits that support those folks. And over the years, I've received hundreds of letters, emails, phone calls thanking me for writing my story. And probably the last, I don't know, what did you say, 1/4, 1/3 is about after I retired out of the Army and my challenges, how I can help other vets, their family members. I mean, I've had letters from dads, from wives, from children. They were young when dad went off. They're older now, but they can read this. Now they understand what dad was doing and where he went and why he did it.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're it's available on Audible, Kindle, and then I've got the hardback edition, and you can order it on my website, bladesforbrothers.com. And I'd like to talk about knife making for just a minute.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Before we do, can I just mention one thing?
Yeah.
For the listeners that are falling in love with your voice, you actually narrate your book, right?
I read it, and I was forced to read it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So I love that part. But my question for you is, are you going to narrate the rewrite?
One day.
Because I really did like you reading it, man. It was awesome for that.
Everybody tells me that. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard work, and yeah, you can only read and Kyle told me this. He's read his books, and I can't find my paper towel. There it is. But yeah, you can only read for about 3 hours.
Okay,
and then you're done, dude.
Yeah.
It's intense. And I would say I had fun reading it, but I really didn't. But it took me 7 days to read it.
Well, it sounds like you had fun while you were reading it. It made it, fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Just the accent, I think, carries a lot. You're talking about a lot of country boy stuff. So,
yeah.
Okay, knife making.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've met a lot of knife makers over my lifetime. World-renowned Bill Harsey, John Horrigan, Steve Schwarzer, and at either a blade show or a SHOT Show. And I've had a few buddies were like, "Hey, Greg, come make a knife with me. Come do this, for years." And, for one reason or another, no, I don't have time. But it's something I always thought about. So Jared Johnson, my brother from another mother, crayon eating Marine, he lives 20 miles from me in Jacksboro, Texas. And he's a knife maker, STA Blades. Check out his work. And he had been beating me up. Hey, come over and hammer some steel. Come hammer some steel. So finally one day I was like, okay, I'm going to come over. And in his shop, I hammer forged a railroad spike. I used a coal forge. I mean, I'd come home just covered in black soot, every day. And Edie'd be like, what in the Sam Hill are you doing at Jared's? I was like, I'm making knives, trying to learn, But, so I spent 30 days, I drove over there every day. Man, I was like, this is cool. I enjoy this. And then once I got into it, Edie said, hey, this has changed you. This has changed you. And I said, really? She goes, yeah. But, so it gives us focus. It gives us a mission. We fire these neurons in our brains. We use math, geometry, art. I mean, all these things that go into knife making. Well, so I fell in love with it. I worked with Jared for about a month. And I said, okay, I'm way behind all these knife makers, man. I want to learn this stuff.
Right.
So I called Bill Harsey. I asked, who is the guy where I can learn how to grind a dagger? The dagger is the hardest knife to grind. Bill Harsey. So I called Bill Harsey. Bill, this is Greg Coker. I want to learn how to grind daggers. He said, well, come to Oregon, son. I will teach you. Fly out to Oregon, spend 3 days with world famous Bill Harsey.
Oh, wow.
He designs the knives for Spartan Blades.
Spartan Blades.
Yeah, they're both SF guys that started Spartan Blades. They're Green Berets.
Yep.
Good dudes, good friends of mine. Steve Schwarzer, world-renowned knife maker, Damascus. John Horrigan. So John is Bob Horrigan's identical twin brother. So we lost Bob in 2005. He was killed in action in Western Iraq. He was also a knife maker. And just an amazing man. John is too. Don't tell anybody I said that.
Well,
he was a ranger. So, but John, go look at his work, man. He sells blades for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. Jim Poor, Bill Poor, again, renowned knife makers. And they only live an hour and a half away. And unfortunate for John, he only lives 3 hours away. So I'll call him, hey, I'm coming to see you. No, you're not. Yeah, I am. I need some help. So, yeah, so I went to these guys. And that's the cool thing about the knife industry. They all want to teach you. They want to share their knowledge. They want to show you what to do, how to do it. And so the 12 minigun barrels off of my AH wound up in my possession. I don't know. But they were all red tagged.
Sure.
They'd burn up in a fire. So I carried these things around, man, for years, since 2004. I was like, man, I want to make something cool out of these one day. Yeah. Not a tomato steak. But, so I was sitting at Blade Show in Fort Worth 3 years ago now. No, 2 years ago. I've been making knives for about a little over 3 years. And I was telling John Horrigan about my idea. Now, let me back up. So Greg Medford Knife and Tool. I was living in Scottsdale working for Dillon Arrow, 2010 and 11. And Greg was new, starting out. His shop was probably about as big as this room. Now it takes up 2 city blocks in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I said, hey, man, see if you can take a couple of these barrels, make some steel, and a knife. And he did. Damascus. So he was kind of the first. Made some folders. He had planned on getting 50 blades out of the steel. Well, something happened in the process. We wound up getting like 13 blades out of the steel, Damascus steel. He made folders, sent me like 9 of them. And so I kept one, and then the others I sent to the guys that were with me the day I got shot down.
Oh, wow.
So it's made out, it's just the minigun steel. So I talked to Steve Schwarzer, John Horgan, and says, hey, go over there and talk to Steve Schwarzer. So I did, introduced myself, and here I told him, I said, this is what I'm trying to do. And he looks at me and he goes, you're going to get your ass on an airplane and you're going to fly to Florida and you're going to come to my shop and we're going to do this.
Oh, wow.
He had never tried to forge a gun barrel. So most gun barrels now are 4140 steel. So the minigun barrels that I had are made out of 4130 steel. So that steel, gun barrel steel, has a lot of chromium in it.
Okay.
And that's to give it longevity, and you get into the molecular structure and the science of it. And Steve had never done it. But he said, Greg, you're going to come to my shop and do this because you can't fuck this up. And I said, yes, sir. Roger that. So I did. I got on an airplane, flew out there, spent a week with Steve, and we started forging. And what I did is I took the barrels and I bored them out because it's got a chrome liner in it. And then I chopped them. I chopped up the barrels in about, 1 inch, 1.5 inch pieces.
Okay.
And then I welded those together and I put them in the forge and started hammering them. And the first forge, I pull it out and it's got this big bubble on it. And I look at it and I was like, he's like, get your ass over there to that press and start smashing it. So I did. Got on this coal iron press, started smashing it, put it back in the forge. He's like, all right, here's a lesson. 99% of the guys out there, that would have gone in the bucket. It would have got thrown away.
Really?
He says, we don't quit.
Okay.
I said, yes, sir. So I spent 2 days, 12 hours a day, forging that gun barrel steel. And we got it to forge. So I was there in September on 9/11. He and his wife, dear Laura, they walk I got into the shop like 6 that morning, man. I was so excited, dude. This is like day 3, morning of day 3. And he handed me a chunk of World Trade Center steel. He had been gifted.
Oh.
Yes, sir. He goes, we're going to put this World Trade Center steel with this minigun
in that gun barrel.
So I chopped it up, sliced it up. So I forged it in the gun barrels, man. So we came out with this billet, and then I made 4 knives out of that billet, a minigun barrel and World Trade Center steel. I designed every one of the knives. I've got the Leon, which is a fighter, and I wanted a blade that was not as big as a Bowie, but a little bigger than a fighter.
Okay.
So the Leon.
That's the Leon.
And then there's the Bob Purple Heart fighter that I named after Bob Horgan. And I called John and asked him, hey, is this cool if I do? He said, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So I made that one. I made a dagger, a 6-gun dagger. And then I had enough steel left over. I made an EDC, an everyday carry knife. But I made them to sell them and raise money to help build the shop. Blades for Brothers. So let me go into Blades for Brothers.
Please.
So Edie and I were sitting there about a year ago, and I said, hey, man, this has really helped me, this knife making. I want to give back. She goes, yeah, you're a giving dude, you know? And, you know, she's kind of like, when are you going to stop? You know? No, I'm just kidding. And she's my biggest supporter. So we started a nonprofit, a 501c3, and I named it Blades for Brothers. So what I'm doing is, because I get therapy out of this. So I bring a vet in, and I teach them how to make a knife. We spend 2 days, but it gives them focus. It gives them a mission. We fellowship. And the thing about vets is we want a safe place.
That's right.
We want a safe place that we can go to for whatever. If we're going to a hunt, or if we're going to, you know, equine therapy, or whatever the case, we want a safe place. I want a safe place. So we are providing a safe place for vets and first responders and family members. So I started this. I've had 18 veterans, 2 police officers, a firefighter, and 1 Gold Star son
That is awesome.
And we made knives. It takes 2 days. And the Gold Star son is 15. I knew his dad. He was a Ranger. He was killed in Afghanistan. But man, oh man. And I've had guys tell me, I've had, I don't know, 5 or 6. I said, Gravy, this saved my life.
Really?
I'm not kidding you. My wife, on her own, built the shop, a new shop. My original shop was we have a 2-car garage, and I took one of the bays, and that was my knife shop. So I have 2 Wilmot grinders. Chris Williams, former Delta guy. Now he makes grinders. He's a knife maker, and he builds Wilmot grinders, or 2x72 grinders. So I got 2 of those, and this is really cool. Last year, Chris calls me. He goes, Greg, I've got one of Bob's grinders, Bob Horgan. I found it. It's here. He lives outside Fayetteville. Do you want it? Yes, I want it. Bob was a very good friend of mine. So I called John. I said, hey, John, Chris just called. He's got Bob's grinder. Is it cool if he said, yep, I've got his other one. So Chris packs it up, ships it to me. So that's in there too. So I have 3 commercial grinders, got buffers, and then through the sale of the knives that I made, I call it War Steel. I bought an Anyang power hammer. It's a 106-pounder. I've got a coal iron 16-ton press. I've got a Paragon heat treat oven. I mean, I bought the best of the best for this shop, for this place, this safe place where vets, first responders, and family members can come.
That's amazing.
And we can make a blade together, man. We can hammer steel, and then we can go shoot pigs that evening if you want to. And then my wife designed, we had a 3-bay garage that we converted into the knife shop. And then she designed, we have a bunkhouse upstairs. So there's a place for guys to stay when they come. So it's really cool.
That is, man.
Check out our website, bladesforbrothers.com. And I do have, a gentleman that purchased the Leon, donated pretty much. And go on there and read the story about the process of this knife. Because I use pieces and parts from my helicopter in the handle, in the sheath. I cut my boots up that I was wearing when I got shot down. That was integrated into the sheath of that knife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's cool. So he purchased the Leon, drove all the way from West Texas, and gifted that knife back to us.
That's incredible.
Said, Greg, this blade, this steel is you and your brothers. It's your blood, your sweat, your tears. It belongs with you. Just display it when you go to a knife show or when guys come. And man, there wasn't a dry eye in the den, man. But it was so cool. Yeah, a fellow from Oregon bought one, bought the Bob Fighter. A fellow from Washington State bought the dagger. And then another fellow purchased the EDC. But yeah, we raised money to build the shop, to buy this equipment. I wanted to have the best equipment I could for these guys. And yeah, so Blades for Brothers, man.
Man, that's cool.
We're moving and shaking. Yeah, it's good.
Really cool, man. So if I wanted to apply, if one of the guys or gals out there wants to apply to do the Blades for Brothers program with you, how's that work? Is it
just
at your
send
website?
me an email?
Okay.
Yeah, go to the website. You can get my email. It's greg@bladesforbrothers.com. And yeah, just send me an email and come on. But you need 2 days. We need 2 days to make a knife. I tried doing it in a day, and we can do it, but it's a long, long, long day, and it's just an ass kicker, man. It is. But 2 days is all we need, and you'll leave there with a completed, really nice blade. You know, I've got skinners. You can do any knife but a dagger. No daggers. Yeah, skinners, everyday carry stuff. Go to our website and look at what we're doing. You can do a fighter. But most guys choose a everyday carry. Back in November, I had 2 brothers come. Both of them combat vets.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cool. One of them was a Night Stalker.
Really? That's really cool.
Yep. He and his brother came. They spent 3 days. They made 2 knives each. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to come spend 3 days, hey, we got a place. Just come on.
That sounds like a really good time too.
It is. It's a safe place. We fellowship, and we make blades, man.
That's
or
awesome.
We hammer steel.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, just before we close out, I want to tell you thank you for coming and sharing the story.
Oh, man. Thank you.
Your stories are incredible, and as you said, God, blessed you with, being in, having some opportunities that a lot of us didn't get. But getting, sharing those stories, I'll tell you, from a ground fighter's perspective, I learned, it opened my eyes to a whole new just vision of what you guys are seeing from up there, and it's a really cool story, which kind of brings up the next question: is there talks of movies?
I wish. I don't know, man. I pray about that all the time. I pray that somebody will get these stories into their hands, and a screenwriter or movie producer, or whatever the case, because I think it's important. One of the other reasons I wrote the book was to educate Americans.
Yeah.
And educate these families on who we are, what we did, and then what we deal with after we get out of the Army.
That's right.
Yeah. And, oh, man, I would love for, somebody to get a hold of this. And
maybe Angel Studios will...
maybe Denzel Washington or somebody will see this. And
So who plays you in the movie?
oh, dude, I don't know.
Sam Elliott. I see Sam Elliott.
Man, he's too old.
He's too old
I love
now,
you, Sam, but
man, yeah.
maybe Hemsworth or
There you go.
yes, yeah, somebody. No, that'd be really cool. I would love to see just a documentary or something just on Haditha Dam. That was the biggest battle of the Iraqi war. That dam was. And there's nothing out there about it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You had a theory of why.
Nobody got killed. Nobody.
You brought everybody home.
Yeah, we brought everybody home, brother.
Man.
Couple wounded. We lost Captain Riptoe and 2 other Rangers on day 2, I think. They had set up a roadblock west of the dam, and doggone, man. I love Russ, and he was the battalion FSO, the fire support officer for 375. And they'd set up blocking position, car pulled up, man jumps out, racky dude, and is holding up an empty jug. They wanted water. And the woman steps out of the car, appears to be pregnant. She's got an empty water bottle. So Russ and the other 2 Rangers approach. She detonates. Kills everybody. True story. Yeah. Captain Riptoe. Yep, Rangers lead the way. And, yeah, man, that was... But no, we didn't lose. We had 3 Rangers wounded on the initial assault on the dam. But, yeah, I pray somebody will see it. Or on that note, so this past week, I got Chris Van Zant, my good friend, called and said, hey, there's a film producer and director that are making a documentary about special operations soldiers post-service. I said, really? He said, yeah, they're going to interview me. So it's Delta, SBS, the British SBS, 22nd SAS, and SEAL Team 6 are the guys. They're in country right now. They're at my house Wednesday filming. But they had asked Chris, they're like, hey, do you know a pilot?
Oh.
and Chris is like, oh, yeah, I know a pilot. So he gave my name. I did 2 interviews over Zoom. And, yeah, they came to the house on Wednesday, and we filmed. So, yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's... it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Yeah, I think Tom Satterley and Jen, they're going to interview them, and then a SEAL Team 6 guy in Virginia. I think they're there now, but they'll head home here. They'll probably head home here in a week or so. Yeah. So we'll see where it goes.
What do you keep any? Are you going to be able to keep any updates going? For the listeners that are interested in keeping up with that story. And
yeah, I'll keep it posted on social media. I mean, I've got a Facebook. Then there's Blades for Brothers Facebook, Instagram. There's Death Waits in the Dark, the book, Facebook, Instagram. But yeah, I'll keep folks updated on social media.
Awesome. And when you get back, obviously, we'll keep chatting, but I'd love to get you back on the channel so we can kind of talk about your recovery more, post medicine, and see how that treatment does for you.
I'm excited, bro. I don't know what I can talk about right now. Everything's happened so quick, so fast. And,
sure.
I'll see what they tell me, but I know good things are going to come.
That's right.
I do. Good Lord willing. Yes, sir. Yeah, and then Edie and I are going to go. We're going to Great Britain in June to finish up their documentary. So they've already emailed me and like, hey, we need you guys to come back and or come over to do this. And I'm like, you bet, absolutely. And the third member of their company is a former SBS, Terry. He was a SBS guy and was shot 6 times in Afghanistan.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, it's an incredible story, man. I think one of them is called Burn the Boats. is the name of their production company.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're very well known in Europe, and yeah, just great guys, man. They're just great guys. Sid, Steve, and Terry. Thanks, brothers.
Right on.
I'm gonna send them this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we'll include a lot of links and everything in the description for, and you know, especially your website and a lot of the places you talked about and whatnot. So absolutely. Well, again, Greg, it's an absolute honor and pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to coming back. Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely, brother.
Thank you. Love you, man.
Love you, man.